Hi guys. Tonight we slip quietly into a world soaked by endless rain, where each step you take through the Stone Age night feels heavy with water and ancient uncertainty. You stand at the edge of a low valley, your hair plastered to your forehead, your breath hanging in the cool damp air, and the steady beat of rainfall settles into your ears like a slow drum meant to lull or unsettle you depending on your mood. You probably will not survive this, at least not without learning how early humans did it. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you feel like it, tell me where you are watching from and what time it is for you right now. Now, dim the lights and let your mind drift as the story flows forward. You trudge across mud that never seems to dry. The storm has lasted so long that it feels like part of the sky itself has fallen. Every breath carries the smell of wet soil, crushed plants, and the faint musk of distant animals seeking shelter. Your toes curl inside hide wrappings that squish unpleasantly with each step. Your shoulders ache from carrying a bundle of gathered branches that you hope will keep a small fire alive tonight. The rain here is not a gentle mist. It is steady and insistent, the kind that makes you wonder if the world has always been like this. As you walk, your group moves silently behind you. No one wants to waste breath. Rain has a way of narrowing conversation to simple gestures. A nod toward the ridge, a hand raised to warn of slippery ground, a glance that asks whether the little ones are still awake enough to climb. The Stone Age world is not loud with voices. It is loud with water. It is loud with wind slipping between stones and leaves. A mainstream historical fact settles into your awareness at this moment. Archaeologists know that early human groups often traveled in small bands of 20 to 30 individuals. That number was manageable. It meant enough hands to gather food and enough warmth to survive harsh nights, yet few enough that they could pick up and move quickly when weather demanded it. Nights like this make you understand why mobility mattered so much. A curious and quirky detail comes to mind as well. Some scholars have found evidence that certain early groups mixed powdered plant fibers with crushed insects to create a slightly water-resistant paste for their clothing. You imagine smearing that strange mixture over your hide coat right now, wondering if it would truly keep water out or simply make you smell like a mossy beetle. The idea is not entirely proven, but it adds a playful possibility to your night under the rain. As you continue searching for a place to sleep, you step carefully across a ledge where rainwater flows in thin lines that shimmer like fresh silver. Stones shift under your feet. A few tumble down a slope and land in a splash. You pause. Everyone else pauses too. In the Stone Age, even the smallest sound can feel important. A loose stone might suggest an old trail. It might hint at an animal's passing, or it could tell you that the place you want to sleep is not stable enough. Historians still argue whether these early humans preferred high ground or low ground during long rains. Some believe the higher elevation offered safety from flooding, while others point out that wind exposure on ridges made those spots too cold for restful sleep. You glance upward to the ridge now. It looks promising, but exposed. You glance down toward the more sheltered hollow. It looks warm but possibly dangerous if water rises. These arguments suddenly feel very real. You keep moving, letting the rain tap against your shoulders with a rhythm that grows strangely soothing. You shift your bundle of branches to your other hip, grateful that the group managed to find at least a few pieces of dry wood hidden inside a fallen tree. You can almost hear the crackle of fire that wood will create, even before you reach shelter. Fire is more precious during constant rain than almost anything else. A warm hearth means safety. It means comfort. It means a chance for your body to truly rest. Your hands brush leaves. They feel cool and slick. Water drips from their tips and runs down your wrists. The Stone Age night wraps around you like a wet blanket, but also like an invitation to slow down and breathe deeply. When you inhale, you taste minerals in the air. When you exhale, you see your breath mix with mist. Ahead, the path narrows. The group must move in single file. You guide the way. stepping over a log softened by rot. Raindrops hit the dead wood so steadily that each thump becomes part of a calming drum beat. You imagine that if someone could record the sound, generations later it might be the perfect track for people who love falling asleep to nature noises. In a strange way, you feel grateful for this wet soundtrack. You lift your face and let rain cool your eyelids. Eyes closed, even for a moment, the world becomes sound and touch instead of shape and fear. You open your eyes again and keep walking. Soon, you reach a place where two large stones form a natural arch. Beneath them lies a dry patch of ground no wider than a few sleeping mats. It is not much, but in this weather, it feels like a palace. You crouch and test the soil with your fingers. It is firm, no puddles, a rare find. You gesture behind you. The others quickly move to claim spots, setting down bundles and shaking water from their hides. You stand for a moment, catching your breath. Rain continues to fall beyond the stone arch, but here you feel only droplets blown in by shifting wind. It is quiet enough to hear the soft movements of your group settling in. Someone unrolls a bundle of leaves for bedding. Someone else places the dry wood in a protected corner. A quiet hope settles across everyone. Tonight, you have shelter. Not perfect shelter, but shelter enough. You sit and stretch your legs, letting your muscles ease. You feel the cold slowly retreat from your fingertips. Your stomach growls softly, reminding you that sleep always depends on whether you have eaten enough. But even hunger cannot break the relief you feel now. You close your eyes again and listen to the world. Rain on stone, wind brushing leaves, a child whispering to a sibling, a distant rumble of thunder that feels more like a sigh than a threat. Your mind drifts as you sit in the soft glow of dusk. You reflect on how nights like these shaped the way early humans learned to survive. You think about resilience, creativity, and the simple desire for a dry place to lay your head. You picture yourself curling up on a leaf bed and letting the storm lull you to sleep. For now, this is enough. The rain continues to fall, but you have found your place inside it. You lean back slowly and let the quiet pulse of the storm fade into a warm haze around your thoughts. You step back out from the stone arch as twilight sinks deeper into the soaked forest, because despite the small shelter you just claimed, the night will demand one more survey. You want to be certain the area is safe, and you want to understand where the water is moving. The rain has not slowed. It falls in shimmering curtains that blur the outlines of trees, making every trunk look a little thicker, every shadow a little longer. Droplets cling to your lashes until each blink becomes a soft flick of cold water away from your eyes. You wander forward along a path that barely exists. The plants seem to lean across it, heavy with moisture, breathing against your shoulders as you brush by. Every step squelches. Mud squeezes up between your toes. Warm, then cold, then warm again, as new puddles swallow your feet. You become aware of a slow, earthy smell rising from the ground, the scent of decaying leaves stirred awake by the constant rain. It is strangely comforting, like the forest is exhaling after too many hours of holding its breath. Your ears pick up layers of sound, rain tapping the canopy, rain running in thin rivulets over bark, rain splashing into deeper pools that must lie somewhere up ahead, and beneath it all, the low hum of wind, not fierce wind, just persistent, whispering through branches, brushing them together in a rhythm that feels almost like voices murmuring around a distant fire. As you explore, you recall something grounded in historical fact. Many early human groups relied heavily on forested environments like this because the trees broke the wind, offered kindling, and collected edible plants in convenient clusters. Forest cover also served as natural protection from predators, since large animals had difficulty moving silently through dense growth. Tonight, as you push a branch aside, you understand the value of such cover. It feels like a gentle cloak thrown over you. A quirky tidbit crosses your mind. Some researchers believe that certain prehistoric groups used large leaves as makeshift ear covers during storms to soften the sound of rainfall and help them sleep. The idea makes you smile. You imagine tucking two broad leaves over your ears like green headphones. Tonight, with the rain drumming so insistently, it might not be the worst idea. Historians still debate whether early forest dwellers slept scattered individually across the landscape or in tight clusters under a single shelter. You think about this as you move farther along the path. Some claim solitary sleep would have reduced sound and scent that could attract predators. Others argue that close sleeping groups shared warmth and offered protection from nightly dangers. You know how your group moves. You know the comfort of being close enough to hear someone breathing slowly near you. The idea of sleeping alone out here feels deeply wrong. You continue deeper into the dripping woods. The ground slopes gently downward, and each footfall sends tiny waves across shallow puddles. You pause beside a tree that towers above you, its bark dark with water, its roots twisting through the soil like ancient fingers gripping the earth. You place a hand on the trunk. It feels cool, solid. A reminder that even in a storm that seems endless, some things do not yield. Above you, branches form a tangled roof. Water beads on the leaves until the weight becomes too much, then falls in heavy drops that strike your shoulders with surprising force. The sound is different here, louder, closer, as if the forest itself is speaking directly to you. You tilt your head, listening. The rain becomes a kind of companion, firm, persistent, but never cruel. You continue forward, and soon the path opens into a small clearing where tall ferns bend under the weight of water. Their fronds brush your legs as you walk, leaving cool streaks on your skin. In the center of the clearing lies a broad, flat stone. Water cascades off its edges in tiny waterfalls, giving it a shining outline. You approach it and slide your hand across its surface, smooth, almost polished by centuries of storms. You imagine early humans using a stone like this as a resting platform during quick pauses in their nightly searches. It is too exposed for sleep in weather like this, but it offers a moment of grounding, a place to gather your mind before moving on. You sit briefly, letting rain tap your back in gentle pulses. You picture yourself in a world where there are no tents, no cabins, no warm blankets. All you have is the knowledge passed through generations and the resilience of your own body. You rise again and continue walking. Water streams along the ground like veins, moving in narrow channels that glint whenever the lightning far away brightens the sky for a split second. You crouch beside one of these tiny streams and touch the water. It flows fast, too fast for comfort. If enough of these channels merge, your sleeping spot near the stone arch could flood. You make a mental note to build a small trench later to divert the water if needed. You follow the stream uphill, tracing where it begins. The forest grows thicker. Some branches hang low enough that you duck beneath them, brushing against wet leaves that leave glistening trails across your cheeks. A scent like crushed pine needles rises as you disturb the undergrowth. It mixes with the smell of rain in a way that feels grounding and almost sweet. You pause beside a fallen log. Mushrooms grow along its surface in delicate clusters, their caps glossy with rain. You run your finger along one of them. Soft, fragile. Early humans probably avoided eating mushrooms during storms, since moisture can make identification harder and mistakes more dangerous. But their presence reminds you of how much the forest offers even in harsh weather. A flicker of movement catches your eye. You turn slowly. Through the trees, an animal darts away. Maybe a small deer, maybe a boar. You only catch its silhouette before it disappears into the shadows. In the Stone Age, that would be enough to sharpen your awareness. Animals seek shelter too. They often compete for the same dry spaces humans favor. You hope the creature does not decide your stone arch is also appealing. You keep walking until you reach a low ridge where water trickles steadily down both sides. From here, you can see glimpses of moonlight filtering through thinner clouds. It casts a faint glow on the wet leaves, making them look like pieces of silver scattered across the forest. The sight calms you. Even in storms, the sky finds ways to show itself. You take a deep breath and begin the journey back. The path feels familiar now. The waterfalls of leaves, the soft thrum of mud. the tree roots twisting beneath your feet. The forest seems to watch you with gentle patience. When you return to the stone arch, the group is settling in. Some are spreading fresh leaves to keep the ground soft. Others are arranging the wood to start a fire. A child yawns, their eyes heavy with sleep. You stand at the entrance for a moment, letting rain fall freely on your shoulders before you step inside. You feel ready to rest. The forest, for all its wet discomfort, has become part of your rhythm. You lower yourself onto the leaf bed waiting for you, and let your body sink into its soft rustle. Rain continues to fall outside, but here, under the stone arch, it becomes background music, a gentle song, a steady calm. You listen to it as you close your eyes. You wake from a shallow rest with the lingering feeling that the night is still shifting around you. Rain has not stopped. It hisses against the stone arch, a constant whispering presence that never quite lets your mind settle fully. The group stirs in soft motions. Someone coughs quietly. Someone else adjusts a bedding of leaves that has grown damp around the edges. You sit up slowly, stretching your neck, listening for anything unusual in the steady downpour. Tonight requires a decision. The stone arch is safe enough for now, but it cannot be your lasting shelter. Water has begun creeping in along the far corner, forming a small reflective pool that grows wider with every minute. If the storm continues for several more nights, which seems likely, your group will need something more reliable. Your eyes drift toward the dark line of cliffs to the west. You recall passing shallow caves earlier in the season. They might still be dry inside. Or they might be flooded, echoing with dripping water and animals that have claimed the space before you could. Standing, you brush stray leaves from your legs. You grip a long branch for balance and step out into the forest, where twilight is thick and the rain feels surprisingly warm against your skin. The world blurs around you. Trees melt into shadow. Pools ripple with each drop. You pause, steadying your breath. The air tastes metallic, a sign that lightning might return soon. Or perhaps it is simply the minerals washed from the cliffs mixing into the soil. Your steps follow a faint trail, one used often during drier days. The earlier rainfall has transformed it into a ribbon of mud, but your feet know the pattern. You press forward, guided more by memory than sight. As you move deeper into the forest, a grounded historical fact drifts into your thoughts. Archaeological evidence indicates that many early humans relied on caves not as permanent homes, but as temporary refuges during harsh weather. Caves offered protection from rain, wind, and predators, but they were often used sparingly because their darkness could hide dangers. You understand the caution. Even now, you feel a small knot of tension in your chest at the thought of stepping into a cavern soaked in shadow. A curious, fringe-like detail brightens your thoughts as you weave between dripping branches. Some researchers propose that certain prehistoric groups decorated the entrances of their temporary shelters with stacked stones or patterns drawn in mud, believing the shapes would ward off unlucky spirits carried in by storms. It is hard to know if this belief was real or if the evidence is misunderstood. Still, as you glance at the trail ahead, you imagine marking a cave entrance with your own simple symbols, hoping the storm would show mercy. Historians still argue whether early humans preferred shallow caves because they provided just enough protection without trapping smoke from fires inside. Others believe deeper caves were prized for their insulation against temperature changes. You reflect on both possibilities, unsure which you will find tonight, but you know you need to keep moving. The forest shifts around you, slowly thinning as you approach the cliffs. Raindrops fall faster here, slipping from the rock face in steady streams. The ground becomes firmer beneath your feet, packed with crushed stone washed down by many seasons of storms. As you step closer, the cliff towers above you, its surface veined with dark streaks where water flows steadily downward. You spot the first shallow cave not far ahead. It forms a low archway, no higher than your shoulders, a dark pocket carved into the stone by centuries of wind and water. You crouch and peer inside. The interior glistens with moisture. Water drips from the ceiling in slow, rhythmic beats that create tiny concentric circles in the puddles below. The air inside smells earthy, as if every stone has been soaking in rain for months. You step back. This cave will not work tonight. It is too wet, too heavy with cold air that clings to your skin even from the entrance. You continue along the base of the cliff, scanning for something better. The second cave lies slightly higher on the rock wall. Reaching it requires climbing over a jumble of jagged stones that shine with reflective wet surfaces. You proceed carefully, gripping the rock as water runs over your fingers. When you reach the opening, you test the air with a slow inhale. Warmer, drier, more promising. You step inside. The first thing you notice is the scent. It is a mix of damp soil and something faintly woody, perhaps old roots trapped beneath layers of earth. The second thing you notice is the quiet. The rainfall fades to a soft murmur beyond the entrance, allowing your breathing to grow slower and more peaceful. You crouch and touch the ground. The soil here is cool but dry. Your shoulders relax with relief. At last, a place that might cradle you away from the relentless downpour. You wander deeper, careful not to step into unseen dips. Your eyes adjust to the darkness, revealing the low curve of the cave ceiling and stone walls streaked with faint mineral patterns. It feels like stepping into the inside of a shell, a cocoon shaped by the earth itself. But you must be cautious. Caves sometimes hold other inhabitants. You listen closely. Silence. No hissing breath of a serpent. No scuttling of insects. No stirring of a larger creature. Only the soft pulse of dripping water somewhere far deeper. A faint rhythm that almost resembles a heartbeat. You exhale slowly. You return to the entrance and walk back out into the rain. You take a moment to memorize the cliff features around the opening. A long vertical crack to the right, a fallen tree at the base of the slope, and a spray of fern, like plants that hold water like bowls. These markers will help you guide the group back here even in the dim stormlight. You start the journey back. The rain has grown colder now. It strikes your skin with sharper taps. You feel it bouncing from your brows and running down your spine. The forest seems darker, as if every drop adds another layer of shadow. But you know where you are going, and that certainty keeps your feet steady. Your mind drifts as you walk. You imagine how the group will react when you show them the dry cave. You think about how you will carry the fire inside, guarding the embers beneath a shield of bark. You picture arranging fresh leaves for bedding, using thicker branches to build a barrier at the entrance in case animals pass through the forest during the night. Lightning flickers far off. For a moment, the forest brightens with a pale glow. You see silhouettes of trees swaying in the storm, their branches heavy with rain. The light fades quickly, leaving only the sound of water again. You cross the clearing with the polished stone, stepping carefully around the puddles that reflect faint streaks of sky. The smell of wet earth rises once more, grounding you. You move through the familiar tunnels of foliage until the stone arch shelter comes into view. Inside, the group looks up as you approach. Their eyes hold expectation and fatigue. You step under the arch and crouch beside them, lowering your voice to a calm whisper. You explain what you found. A dry cave, a safe place where the group can rest more peacefully while the storm continues. Their shoulders ease. Someone exhales loudly in relief. A child lifts their head, already imagining the journey. There is no need to wait. You gather your belongings, bundling the remaining dry wood in layers of hide. You help a few others wrap their leaf bedding into manageable rolls. You take the smallest child onto your back, their arms draped sleepily around your neck. Then you lead the way. The forest feels different now that you are guiding your people through it. Every step becomes more deliberate. Every sound carries more meaning. Rain cascades in silver streaks from the canopy above. Leaves brush your arms and legs as you move. Mud clings to your feet but gives way with each step. The cold becomes sharper as the night deepens. You reach the clearing, then the ridge, then the fallen log, where mushrooms glisten like tiny lanterns in the dark. The group follows in a single file, each person trusting your path. You guide them up the rocks one by one, helping hands finding firm holds on the slippery stones. When the entrance to the cave appears, dim and welcoming, you see relief spread across every tired face. You gesture them inside. They step into the dry space, laying down bedding, placing wood near the wall, shaking out their damp hides. A soft murmur fills the cave, the sound of people settling into a place where sleep might finally come easier. You sit near the entrance, feeling the warmth of bodies behind you and the cool mist drifting in from the rain. You let your breath deepen. The storm continues outside, but here in the cave, the world feels steady. You listen to the rain fade into a distant hush and let your eyes drift half closed. The night begins to soften around you. You step out of the cave at first light, though the sky barely changes color beneath the curtain of rain. Dawn arrives as nothing more than a paler shade of grey. Your breath curls in front of you, mixing with mist that clings to every shape in the forest. The group still sleeps behind you, scattered across leaf beds that make soft rustling sounds whenever someone shifts in their dreams. You move quietly so you do not wake them. Today, you need to build something more reliable than a cave entrance. You need a shelter that can handle rain, crawling sideways, dripping endlessly, sneaking into every weakness. The forest greets you with the smell of soaked wood and crushed greenery. Every branch droops as if exhausted by the weight of water. You run a hand along a nearby sapling. It bends easily beneath your touch, elastic and strong, perfect for building. The memory of how your elders shaped simple shelters returns with vivid clarity. They would gather flexible branches, bend them into arches, and layer them with hides or large leaves until the structure trapped warmth inside. You picture that shape in your mind now. A low dome, sturdy enough to resist wind, simple enough to build quickly. You step deeper into the trees, searching for materials. Your fingers glide over smooth bark, coarse moss, and wet vines that cling to your palms. The storm has brought down several branches. Some are too soaked to be useful, but others still hold firm cores. You test each one, bending it slightly, feeling its strength. The forest seems eager to give what you need. You collect the best pieces and stack them into a bundle. As you work, a widely accepted archaeological insight flickers into your thoughts. Excavations from certain prehistoric sites reveal circular stains in the soil where wooden frames of temporary shelters once stood. These marks suggest that early humans frequently built low, rounded dwellings during seasons of relentless rain. The shape reduced wind pressure and allowed rain to slide off easily. You sense the wisdom in that design now. A curved roof is not a luxury, it is a necessity. You pause, noticing a thin stream flowing along the forest floor. The sound is calming, steady, like a natural guide leading you somewhere. You follow it until you reach a cluster of broadleaf plants growing near a fallen tree. Their leaves are wide as your torso, with surfaces that repel water in shimmering beads. You grin quietly. This is good luck. These leaves will help shield the shelter from the worst of the downpour. You begin cutting them at their stems using a sharpened flint. The edges release a faint, herbal scent that rises into the damp air. While gathering the leaves, a small but fascinating detail comes to mind, one that rarely appears in common stories of early survival. Some researchers have noted residues of sticky plant resins on ancient tools, suggesting that early humans sometimes glued leaves together to form thicker, waterproof layers. Whether the resin truly worked as well as imagined is uncertain, but the idea feels strangely modern. You wonder if you could try it later, perhaps mixing sap from the nearby pines with crushed fibers to strengthen the shell of your shelter. You gather vines next. They hang from tall branches like living ropes, twisted and strong. You tug gently to test them. They resist. Good. These vines will tie the shelter ribs together. You coil several lengths over your shoulder, the wet fibers brushing your neck and leaving cool traces down your spine. You return to the cave and drop the materials near a dry patch of soil. The group begins to stir. Eyes blink open. Children lift their heads. A few adults push themselves upright with heavy breaths, fatigue still thick in their movements. But when they see the collection of branches, leaves, and vines, they understand what comes next. Together, you choose a spot near the cave entrance where the ground tilts slightly upward, reducing the risk of pooling water. You kneel and press your hand into the soil. Firm enough, stable. You begin by planting 2 long branches into the earth, bending them and tying their tops together to form an arch. Then you repeat the process on the other side, creating a pair of crossed ribs. Soon, a simple frame takes shape. The structure rises like the bones of a great creature curled gently on the forest floor. Rain drips onto your shoulders while you work, but you barely feel it. Your focus narrows entirely on the shelter in front of you. More arches follow. More vines tighten around the joints. You weave smaller branches between the ribs, creating a lattice. Children gather leaves and place them within reach. Their laughter is quiet but warm, mixing with the patter of rainfall in a comforting rhythm. A lingering debate among anthropologists touches your mind as you continue building. Some experts suggest that prehistoric shelters were assembled in mere hours, implying that early humans worked with remarkable speed and coordination. Others argue these structures likely required far more time, especially during storms when materials were heavy and slippery. You feel the truth somewhere in between. Speed is possible, but only with shared purpose, and today your group shares it fully. You begin layering the large leaves across the frame. Their smooth surfaces shed water instantly. Each one creates a small drumbeat when raindrops strike. You fit them tightly, overlapping them in rows, making sure the seams run downslope so water cannot slip inside. The scent of the leaves mixes with the earthy smell of damp soil, forming a fragrance that feels both wild and comforting. Within an hour, the frame disappears beneath the leafy covering. The shelter becomes a soft green mound, almost blending into the surrounding forest. Rain slides over it in thin sheets. You watch carefully to ensure nothing leaks. A few small gaps appear near the base, so you patch them with handfuls of moss, pressing it into place like natural insulation. Inside the shelter, the light becomes dim and gentle. The air warms quickly from the body heat of those already resting within. You crawl into the dome, testing the space. It feels safe, enclosed, almost cozy, despite the storm raging outside. You lie back on the leaf bedding and listen. The sound of rain is muffled now, transformed into a soft, distant hiss that wraps itself around your thoughts. After a moment, you crawl out again. You are not finished. You gather more stones from the forest, choosing flat ones that were shaped by centuries of water. You arrange them in a crescent near the shelter entrance, creating an elevated platform for fire. This will keep the flames from drowning in puddles. You stack wood carefully, then strike flint against a shard of pyrite. Sparks leap, dry fibers catch. A flame grows, trembling weakly before strengthening into a steady glow. Warmth spreads across your palms. Smoke rises in a thin coil and escapes through the top of the shelter where you left a deliberate vent. The design works. Relief fills your chest in a slow wave. You gesture the group closer. They gather around the fire, forming a quiet circle. The youngest lean against adults. The oldest breathe deeply, soaking in the warmth that has been missing for so many rainy nights. You sit at the edge of the group, watching how firelight dances across the wet cave walls. The flames paint shifting shapes that look almost like ancient spirits moving in and out of the shadows. A sense of connection rises inside you, as if generations of people before you are whispering guidance through the flickering glow. You close your eyes briefly, letting the warmth settle into your muscles. When you open them again, rain still falls, but the storm feels farther away, less like a threat and more like a constant companion. You lean back, resting your weight on your hands. The shelter you built today stands strong against the weather. It will keep the group dry through the next stretch of endless downpour. You feel pride, yes, but also a quiet peace. You survived another day of rain. Another night waits, but this time you have a refuge crafted by your own hands. The fire crackles, The group settles. The storm hums outside like a lullaby made of water and wind, and you breathe easier. You sit near the new shelter's entrance as afternoon fades into a dim, silvery dusk, and you notice how the light from the fire struggles to push back the steady gloom. The flames flicker, casting ribbons of orange across the dripping leaves outside. The rain has not eased at all. It hammers the forest with relentless patience, like a giant tapping on the world's roof again and again. You hold your hands near the warmth, letting heat soak slowly into your bones. Tonight, you decide to stay outside for a while before joining the others inside the shelter. You want to watch how fire behaves under this kind of rain. In the Stone Age, fire is not simply warmth. Fire is life. And in storms like this, it becomes a fragile creature that must be coaxed and protected. The hearth you built earlier crackles softly, the stones around it warming to a deep, pleasant heat. Sparks leap upward, vanish into the damp air, then reappear in the reflections on nearby puddles. The glow dances across the green dome of your shelter, giving it the appearance of a sleeping creature with a heartbeat glowing inside its chest. You feed a small branch into the flames. The fire hesitates, then accepts it with a soft sigh. As you observe the flicker, a well-known archaeological insight crosses your mind. Charred deposits in ancient hearth sites show that early humans often kept fire alive through many consecutive nights, even during long periods of wet weather. They did this by tending coals carefully, banking them under ashes and hiding them from wind and rain. You picture your ancestors crouched over embers, faces glowing faintly in the dark, shielding the heat with cupped hands. You feel a strange kinship with them, as if the fire itself is a thread connecting distant eras. Nearby, an older woman from your group kneels beside the flames. She places a handful of pine needles into the fire. They flare brightly, filling the air with a sharp, resinous scent that mixes with the earthy aroma of wet soil. It reminds you of forest stories told during childhood, tales whispered in the firelight about spirits hidden in trees. You inhale deeply, letting the scent settle inside your memories. A curious but rarely mentioned observation returns to you. Some researchers propose that certain prehistoric families used aromatic plants to influence mood during difficult nights, not for ritual alone, but to help calm restless minds during storms. You notice how the pine smoke seems to soften the group's breathing, giving them a calmer rhythm. Maybe that old idea has some truth. You lean closer to the fire and poke gently at the coals. Their glow deepens, brightens, then evens out into a slow, comforting pulse. Watching them becomes strangely hypnotic. Firelight has a way of holding your attention, easing your pulse, and blurring the edges of time. People thousands of years ago must have felt the same quiet pull when they stared at flames dancing in the night. As your thoughts drift, another unresolved academic discussion rises in your mind. Some scholars debate whether early humans positioned their hearths at the center of camp or kept them near shelter entrances to guard against predators. You consider the cave behind you and the green dome at your side. Placing the fire outside makes sense tonight. Heat can drift inward, while smoke escapes easily into the open air. But you also know that a fire placed at the edge of camp can act like a beacon for hungry creatures seeking warmth. You glance into the forest. Trees sway gently under the weight of water. Their silhouettes blend with drifting mist, forming shapes that shift and stretch in the dim light. You listen carefully for the sound of heavy paws or snapping twigs, but all you hear is the persistent whisper of rain dripping from the canopy above. You relax again, though you keep one hand resting on a sturdy branch beside you. The flames crackle with renewed life, and you become aware once more of how precious fire truly is. It dries clothing, warms chilled limbs, cooks food, and keeps darkness from pressing too close. You imagine how different this storm would feel without this bright, breathing companion. The idea sends a shiver down your back. Behind you, inside the shelter, several group members are already drifting towards sleep. You hear the soft rustle of leaves as they settle into their bedding. Their voices fade into low murmurs. Occasionally, someone laughs quietly, their fatigue lifting briefly. The shelter muffles the sound of rain, turning it into a background hum. You feel grateful for what you built today. It is not a palace, but it is a soft shield against a difficult world. You stand and step a little farther from the fire to gather more branches. The forest around you feels heavy yet alive. The smell of wet wood fills your lungs. When you bend to pick up a fallen limb, droplets slide from your hair and trace cool lines along your cheeks. You wipe them away with the back of your hand, then return to the flames with your bundle of wood. The fire accepts the new fuel with a low crackle. You sit again, folding your legs beneath you. You take a moment to breathe deeply and look out into the dim forest. Rain creates tiny ripples on the surface of the mud. Each drop seems to shimmer for a heartbeat before vanishing. Far above, branches shift in a slow dance. Wind moves them back and forth in a rhythm that feels strangely soothing, like waves rolling across a vast ocean. You reach out and hold your hands over the fire once more, palms open, fingertips tingling. Warmth seeps into your skin. The sound of crackling wood escapes the hearth in small pops that roll gently into the night air. The group behind you grows quieter by the minute. Soon, only soft breaths drift from the shelter. Your mind drifts to the animals that might be moving through the forest right now. The constant rain drives them from their usual shelters. Some might seek caves. Some might curl beneath massive roots. Some might simply wander until exhaustion forces them to stop. You imagine a large cat stalking silently through the wet ferns, searching for a hidden nook to rest. You picture a family of small deer huddling beneath a fallen tree. All creatures must find rest, even in storms that refuse to break. You pick up a long stick and place it across the fire. The bark smolders slowly. Embers bleed into the dark edges of the wood. You watch intently, making sure the fire remains healthy but not too strong. Flames that burn too aggressively can eat through precious fuel too quickly. Flames too weak can fade into smoke and die. This delicate balance reminds you of the care needed to survive the Stone Age. Nothing is guaranteed. Not warmth, not dryness, not even the ability to fall asleep easily. You must create those moments through skill, patience, and constant attention. A soft rustle behind you signals someone slipping out of the shelter. A young woman kneels beside the fire and warms her hands. Her eyes are heavy with sleep, but she smiles faintly at the comfort of the glow. She murmurs something about the rain sounding softer from inside. You nod. The shelter does its job well. After a few minutes, she returns inside, leaving you with the fire once more. The night deepens, rain becomes heavier again for a moment, then softens. The sky flashes faintly with sheet lightning, far away, without thunder. The brightness slides across the clouds like a whisper of light. It reflects on wet leaves, turning the forest into a mosaic of pale silver and dark shadow. You breathe slowly, allowing your heartbeat to follow the ebb and flow of the fire. Soon, you will join the others inside. But for now, sitting in front of the flames feels like a small ritual, a moment of gratitude, a quiet pause in the long stretches of survival. You reach into the fire pit and move a glowing coal to the edge. You cover it gently with a layer of ash so it will stay warm through the night. Tomorrow, it will help spark the next fire with less effort, a trick learned from generations long before you. You stand at last, stretching your back. The fire will burn low on its own. The coals will hold their breath until dawn. You step toward the shelter entrance, shake rain from your hair, and crawl inside. Warmth greets you immediately. Soft breathing surrounds you. Leaf bedding rustles under your weight. Outside, the storm continues to fall with endless patience. But here in the shelter, it finally feels distant. You close your eyes. The last sounds you hear are the crackle of dying embers and the steady rhythm of water slipping from leaf to leaf above your head. You wake again before the others, though the world has not brightened much. The rain still pours with the same unwavering rhythm, thick enough to soften every outline and blur the forest into a watercolor of greens and greys. You stretch your limbs quietly inside the shelter and feel the slight dampness that has crept into the leaf bedding during the night. It is not soaked, only cool and softened by moisture. That is normal in weather like this. Nothing stays completely dry for long. You crawl outside, careful not to disturb the sleepers. The air greets you with a wave of cold mist that brushes along your cheeks. You inhale slowly. The scent of wet leaves is rich and heavy, like crushed herbs and fresh soil. It wraps around your senses until you feel as if you are breathing the forest itself. Your feet sink slightly into the soft ground as you walk. You wander toward the cluster of trees where the forest floor is thickest with fallen leaves. They form a rustling carpet beneath the rain, their edges curled, softened, and darkened by moisture. You crouch and lift a handful. They cling lightly to your fingers, flexible and smooth, perfect for bedding. Early humans learned quickly that layering leaves created a cushion that kept their bodies off cold, waterlogged soil. When piled deeply, leaves trap pockets of warm air, forming one of the simplest but most effective sleeping surfaces nature can offer. A widely recognized archaeological observation echoes in your thoughts as you sift through the leaf litter. Many prehistoric living sites show compacted layers of leaves and grasses in sleeping areas, flattened into soft mats by long nights of use. Some layers even contain traces of crushed aromatic plants that may have helped repel insects. You imagine how comforting that must have been. A natural mattress infused with subtle perfume. You smile slightly at the thought and gather a fresh bundle. The leaves make soft crackling sounds against each other, but their texture is gentle. You press the pile against your chest, enjoying the earthy fragrance that rises from it. The rain dampens the top layer, but the leaves beneath remain surprisingly dry. As you collect more, you remember a lesser-known detail from old stories shared by experienced gatherers. Some groups intentionally mixed fir needles or certain stiff grasses into their bedding to create springy layers that kept moisture from seeping upward during long storms. You test a few fir branches nearby. Their needles are sharp but flexible, and when woven into the leaf pile, they create tiny air gaps that help the bedding breathe. You incorporate some now, pleased with the improvement. With your arms full, you return to the shelter. Inside, the group slowly awakens. Some stretch their arms overhead, others rub sleep from their eyes. A few children mumble sleepily and roll onto their sides. You gesture for them to move aside as you shake out the old bedding and spread the new bundle across the floor. The soft leaves create a thicker cushion, and their subtle fragrance replaces the mustiness of yesterday's damp decay. A young boy lies down immediately to test the new bedding. He curls in the center, sighs deeply, and begins to smile. You cannot help but laugh quietly. Leaf beds may be simple, but in the Stone Age, they are one of the greatest comforts available. As the group tends to other morning tasks, you step outside once more, letting rain wash lightly across your shoulders. You walk toward a nearby tree whose bark is coarse and patterned with grooves. Water streams down its trunk, gathering in the natural channels carved by time. You place your hand on the bark and feel the slight vibration of raindrops hitting the canopy above. It is almost like the tree is humming. You lean close and listen. The forest is alive with sound, rain pattering in countless rhythms, leaves shaking under the weight of water. Somewhere far off, a bird calls in a long, mournful note. Closer by, a branch snaps under the movement of a small animal searching for shelter. The soundscape is both chaotic and soothing, layered with textures that shift each moment. As you stand there, another unresolved scholarly conversation surfaces in your thoughts. Some researchers suggest that the rhythmic noise of rain may have influenced sleep patterns of prehistoric groups. The constant sound could either help people fall asleep more easily or keep them half alert throughout the night, depending on individual temperament. Listening now, you understand why this question remains open. Rain can lull you into a dreamy state or prick your instincts awake with each sudden crack from the canopy. You move deeper into the forest where the trees grow taller and the forest floor thickens with organic layers. Here, the ground feels springy, like a natural cushion shaped by centuries of fallen leaves. You kneel and push your fingers through the layers. They part gently, revealing dry pockets beneath the topmost damp leaves. This discovery makes you pause. Perhaps you can gather not only surface leaves but also the deeper, drier ones to strengthen tonight's bedding. You dig carefully, your hands moving through warm, decomposing layers that smell like rich humus. These hidden leaves feel different from the wet ones above, softer, more pliable, almost velvety. You collect another bundle, shaking loose bits of soil as you rise. On your way back, you notice something unusual in the undergrowth. A cluster of plants with long serrated leaves grows near a fallen tree. Their stems are thick and fibrous. When you brush your fingers across one leaf, it gives off a faint, spicy scent. You remember hearing tales from elders that certain plants like this were woven into bedding because they helped warm the body naturally. Whether this was truly effective or simply folklore is uncertain, but you decide to gather a few stems anyway. If nothing else, the scent is pleasant and might make the shelter smell less like constant rain. The shelter fills gradually with fresh materials. Some members of the group help fluff the leaves into thick, inviting piles. Others sit beside the fire pit, warming their hands as the flames rise steadily. You add a few fragrant stems together with the leaves and watch as the bedding transforms into something more vibrant. The soft green hues mix with earthy browns and deep forest yellows. You settle onto the bedding to test it. The leaves shift softly beneath your weight, molding to your hips and shoulders. The fir needles woven through the pile add just enough spring to keep you from sinking into the cold ground. You close your eyes for a moment and breathe in the warm, herbal fragrance that lifts from the fresh layer. A sense of peace drifts into your chest. But you cannot stay still for long. You rise again and step outside, letting the rain cool your skin. You walk around the shelter, examining its leafy roof. Water slides down smoothly without gathering into heavy pools. The vines holding the structure together remain taut and strong. You tighten one or two, just to be safe, then kneel to press more moss around the lower edges where water occasionally sneaks inward. The group gathers around the fire to eat what little dried food remains from the previous day. A few share roasted roots wrapped in leaves. Others chew berries softened by rain. The meal is simple, but it warms stomachs and restores energy. After eating, several people slip back inside the shelter to test the new bedding. Their soft murmurs of approval reach you from within the green dome. You wander to the tree line again, letting your thoughts drift. You imagine how early humanity must have faced similar storms, building similar bedding, shaping similar shelters. You feel the weight of countless generations pressing against your shoulders, not as a burden but as encouragement. Every leaf you gather, every piece of bark you repurpose, echoes practices that shape the survival of your species. The rain shifts suddenly, falling harder for a brief stretch before easing again into a steady rhythm. You raise your face to the sky, eyes half closed, letting droplets cool your eyelids. Beyond the grey clouds, you imagine sunlight waiting patiently for its chance to return. But that day is still far off. When you return to the shelter, the bedding invites you like a soft embrace. You lie down beside others, feeling warmth spread through your limbs. The scent of pine and fresh leaves fills your senses. Rain taps gently above your head. You curl onto your side, listening to the rhythmic breaths of the group, and feel sleep pulling you closer. In this moment, the leaf bed becomes more than a place to rest. It becomes your island in a world soaked with rain, your soft barrier against the cold earth, your sanctuary built from the forest's quiet generosity. You breathe in deeply, and the storm becomes a distant lullaby. You drift in and out of a shallow rest, lulled by the steady tapping of rain against the roof of leaves. The sound becomes a gentle rhythm, neither loud nor soft, just persistent enough to wrap itself around your thoughts. When you open your eyes again, the shelter is dim but warm. A few embers still glow near the entrance, pulsing like tiny hearts waiting for someone to feed them. You stretch your limbs, roll your shoulders, and decide to step outside for a moment before the others wake. The moment you crawl out of the shelter, the rain greets you with cool drops that slide down your cheeks. You blink slowly, letting your eyes adjust to the muted morning light. Everything around you glistens. Leaves shine with fresh water. Tree trunks drip in slow, steady lines. The ground glitters with puddles that reflect slivers of grey sky. It feels as if the world has been dipped in liquid silver. You take a few steps forward, enjoying the soft squish of the earth beneath your feet. The air has a rich scent, like wet bark and crushed herbs blending together. You close your eyes and listen again. The rain is changing its music today. Instead of the harsh pounding from earlier nights, it falls in varied rhythms that shift depending on where it lands. Thick drops thud heavily on broad leaves. Fine mist hisses through the thinner branches. Tiny splashes dance across puddles. A memory rises unbidden. Elders often spoke of how rain could guide the mind into sleep if you listened long enough. They said each storm had its own melody, and that those melodies helped early humans predict shifts in weather. Whether that is perfectly accurate is uncertain, but as you listen now, you sense patterns hidden inside the clamor. The forest is full of quiet codes. Rain patters gently above your head, and you step under a large tree to watch how water slips from leaf to leaf. It reminds you of fingers running across a drum. Maybe this is why your ancestors found comfort in rain songs and rhythmic chants. Nature provided the first lullabies. As you stand there, a well-known archaeological hypothesis crosses your mind. Remnants of ancient camps suggest that certain groups arranged their shelters so the sound of water falling from nearby trees created a calming echo that encouraged sleep. The pattern of drops hitting natural surfaces may have acted like a primitive soundscape, guiding minds toward rest even during harsh nights. You listen now, trying to hear what they may have heard. There is a kind of peace inside the noise, a soft pulse beneath the chaos. You breathe slowly, letting your body relax. Then, a small rustle catches your attention. You turn your head slightly and see a bird perched on a low branch. Its soaked feathers cling to its body, making it look smaller than usual. It shakes its wings, sending droplets into the air, then hops closer to you. The sight surprises you. Animals often hide during heavy storms, yet this little creature seems determined to stay awake with you. You watch each other for a quiet moment before it darts away, vanishing into the thick undergrowth. You walk back toward the shelter, but instead of re-entering, you sit on a flat stone just a few steps away. The surface is cold and slick, but it feels grounding. You rest your elbows on your knees and close your eyes. Rain becomes your companion, your background music, your reminder that survival in the Stone Age is never silent, it is full of sound. While sitting there, another interesting detail from prehistoric studies drifts into your thoughts. Some researchers believe that the soft, repetitive noise of rain helped early humans fall into segmented sleep patterns rather than long, continuous rest. People might wake several times throughout the night but return to sleep easily because the environment never changed. The rain remained steady, predictable, almost like a blanket for the mind. You think about this as you sit with your eyes closed. You feel that susceptibility yourself. The rhythmic tapping pulls you inward. It makes you heavy. Your body wants to sink, to drift, to surrender. But you open your eyes again, knowing you should stay awake a bit longer. The forest seems to breathe with you. Every branch sways slightly under the weight of water. Every leaf trembles. Mist curls around your ankles, making your steps feel dreamlike. You watch how drops gather at the tips of branches, growing heavier with each second, until finally falling in a tiny burst of silver. Each one lands with its own sound, delicate and precise. You stand and walk a slow circle around the shelter to inspect the leafy roof. The water slides smoothly down its surface, exactly as you intended. The vines remain tight, and the moss is holding strong near the edges. A few small leaks need patching, so you adjust them with extra handfuls of damp leaves. The roof thumps with each drop, creating a deep, soothing percussion. When others sleep inside, this sound must settle into their dreams, guiding them into deeper rest. You crawl back into the shelter to check on the group. Several people remain asleep, curled on the leaf bedding. A child sucks in gentle breaths while holding a smooth stone like a talisman. Someone nearby snores softly, a tender, rhythmic rasp that blends into the sound of rain overhead. The bedding looks comfortable, warm in the center, and only a little damp at the edges. You lie down for a moment. The leaves cradle your body. The scent of pine needles and crushed herbs drifts upward. Rain becomes a soft hum above you, muffled by the thick green roof. You can feel the vibrations of droplets running down the exterior surface. It is like sleeping beneath a drum that never stops playing. Your mind wanders. You imagine early humans listening to storms exactly like this. Perhaps the sound protected their minds from wandering thoughts. Perhaps it lulled them into half-dreaming states where they could rest but still sense danger. You remember discussions among researchers who continue to question how rain influenced emotional well-being in ancient people. Some suggest constant storms cause stress and anxiety. Others argue the opposite, believing that steady rainfall offered a sense of security by masking frightening noises at night. Sitting here, you feel both possibilities. Comfort and tension, layered together like leaf bedding. You rise again, unable to stay still. You slip outside once more and walk toward a narrow path between two old trees. Rain hits their trunks and flows down in thin rivulets that shimmer like liquid beads. You run a finger along the bark, feeling the grooves filled with cool runoff. That sensation grounds you in a way that words cannot explain. The forest is not just a place, it is a presence. Farther along the path, you discover a shallow depression in the ground, where water gathers into a tiny pool. Floating on its surface are a few curled leaves, drifting in slow circles. The sight calms you. Everything moves at its own pace. Everything finds its rhythm. You crouch there for a long while, simply watching the small whirlpools the rain creates. You feel drowsiness tug at the edges of your awareness. The rain sounds like 1,000 soft taps, like fingers on distant drums. It becomes your heartbeat, your breath, your quiet companion. Eventually, you stand and return to the shelter. You slip inside once again and curl onto the leaf bedding. The group sleeps peacefully. The rain continues to whisper above you. You let your eyes close. In this shelter, beneath this steady rain, you drift into a dream that feels ancient. You wake to the warm press of bodies beside you, a subtle reminder of how close everyone has slept through the night. The shelter is dim, lit only by the faint daylight filtering through seams between the leaves. Raindrops continue their soft tapping above your head, but the rhythm feels different this morning, quieter, gentler, like the storm is catching its breath. You roll onto your back and listen to the rise and fall of breathing around you. There is comfort in this closeness, in the shared warmth that lingers even after the fire has faded to pale ash. You sit up slowly so you do not disturb anyone and crawl toward the entrance. Outside, the air feels heavier, saturated with mist that clings to your skin and hair. You inhale deeply. The scent of wet greenery floods your senses. Everything smells alive, vibrant, renewed by the endless rain. The ground outside the shelter squishes under your weight. Thin layers of mud coat your feet as you step carefully, scanning the forest around you. Mist curls between the tree trunks like drifting spirits, softening every edge and shrinking the world to a small, intimate radius. You can barely see 10 steps ahead. It is as if the forest has drawn a curtain to protect you. Behind you, the first sleepy murmurs rise from inside the shelter. A few members of the group begin to stretch, their silhouettes moving in gentle shapes beneath the leafy roof. Soon they crawl out one by one, rubbing their eyes, combing fingers through tangled hair, shaking dew from their shoulders. The air around you warms slightly as more bodies gather. You watch them for a moment and feel a quiet affection. In weather like this, closeness becomes more than convenience. It becomes the core of survival. A well-regarded insight from studies of prehistoric life comes to mind as you observe the group settling into their dawn routines. Many remains of ancient camps show sleeping areas arranged in clusters, suggesting that early humans rested shoulder to shoulder to maintain body heat. This arrangement would have been especially valuable during long storms when firewood was scarce and everything remained damp. The warmth of the group itself became a shared resource. You feel that truth now, as you step closer to your companions. Even after waking, their bodies radiate a gentle heat that lingers in the cool air. As everyone stretches, yawns, and adjusts their hide coverings, a young girl huddles close to her mother. The mother wraps an arm around her shoulders. You smile softly. That simple gesture brings a sense of safety into the damp morning. A seldom discussed detail passes through your mind as you watch them. Some researchers believe that larger groups might have developed simple rhythms or hums to soothe children during harsh weather. Low vibrations could help calm nerves, allowing everyone to sleep more easily. Whether this is fully accurate or not, the idea feels right. You can picture someone humming to ease a child's fear when thunder shook the ground. You look around at your own group. No one is humming this morning, but the closeness itself works like a lullaby. People lean on each other, share small smiles, and speak with soft voices. The storm outside may feel endless, but inside the community, there is warmth. As the group wakes fully, you begin preparing for the day. You gather a few dry sticks from near the cave entrance, surprised to find that some remained protected beneath an overhang. You bring them to the fire pit and gently nudge the buried embers. A faint glow flickers beneath the ash. You add thin twigs on top and blow softly. The embers respond, breathing life into the wood. Flames rise slowly, their warmth creeping outward in widening circles. People gather around the small fire, hands extended toward the glow. Their faces soften as heat touches their skin. You sit with them, your shoulders brushing against the people next to you. No one speaks loudly. Voices remain hushed, blending with the pattering rain. The shared warmth and the murmuring of rain create a cocoon of stillness. As you warm yourself, a long-standing discussion among researchers unfolds in your mind. Some anthropologists propose that communal sleeping not only conserved heat, but also strengthened emotional bonds. The constant presence of others during difficult nights could build trust, helping groups function more smoothly during times of stress. You think about the people around you, how each has relied on the others for comfort, food, or watchfulness. Closeness is not merely physical. It forms the foundation for every decision you make as a community. Rain begins to fall harder again, like the sky has regained its energy. Droplets hit the shelter roof in sharp thumps. The group instinctively leans closer to the fire. The leaves above flex under the impact but hold firm, shedding water as you intended. You sit there watching the roof tremble gently as each drop hits and rolls away. The sound blends into a deep, resonant hum, like the forest itself is breathing. You decide to check on the surrounding area before the rain intensifies further. You rise, pat the shoulder of the person beside you, and step outside the ring of warmth. Cool air replaces the fire's heat immediately, sending a slight shiver through your arms. You walk toward the edge of the clearing and test the ground with your foot. Water has gathered in shallow hollows, forming clear pools where tiny insects skim the surface in delicate patterns. You watch them for a moment, fascinated by how they move so effortlessly across the trembling water. The trees shuffle under the wind, their branches dripping freely. You reach out and touch a low-hanging limb. Droplets slide across your fingers. The rain seems to echo from every direction, bouncing off leaves, bark, and stone. You tilt your head and listen more closely. The sound of rain on the shelter roof is different from the sound here at the forest's edge. There, it was deep and muffled. Here, it dances with sharper tones as drops strike exposed branches. You step farther into the open and find that the sound changes again when falling onto thick ferns. Softer, more delicate, like whispering fingertips. The forest has countless voices today, each shaped by the surface it touches. You wander back toward the group, feeling calmer after your small exploration. When you return, the fire burns stronger, its warmth pushing back the morning chill. People sit in a tight half circle, shoulders touching lightly. The closeness seems almost instinctive now. No one wants to stray too far from the warmth, from the steady presence of others. You sit among them, allowing your body to relax into the rhythm of shared breathing. You notice how the group subtly adjusts itself. Children lean against adults. Elders sit near the warmest spot. Hunters sit in positions where they can see the forest clearly. Without discussing it, everyone takes the place that suits them best. It feels natural, as if the group is a single living organism that arranges itself instinctively. Someone passes you a piece of dried root, softened by the steam from the fire. You chew slowly, savoring the earthy flavor. It is not a feast, but it is enough. The warmth of the food joins the warmth of the fire, spreading through your chest, easing the tightness in your muscles. You glance around and notice people leaning their heads on each other's shoulders. A few eyes already drift closed again. Rain often keeps people half awake during the day, inviting them into small naps whenever they can find comfort. You feel that drowsiness pulling at you too. The sound of rain, the warmth of the fire, the closeness of the group, all work together like invisible hands guiding you towards sleep. You lie back slightly, resting against a rolled hide. The shelter hums with rain. The fire crackles softly. Someone beside you shifts closer, sharing warmth without a word. You let your eyes close. In this moment, surrounded by steady rain and steady companionship, you understand why early humans chose to sleep together on stormy nights. Safety, warmth, trust. These things pulse through the group like a shared heartbeat. The world may be wet and restless, but here in the circle of bodies and firelight, your mind softens into peaceful calm. You wake again to a subtle shift in the forest's voice. The rain continues, as constant as breathing, but something in the rhythm feels different. You listen closely, letting the sound settle into your awareness. Between the steady drizzle and the soft patter on leaves, you hear faint rustles that do not belong to water alone. You sit upright inside the shelter, careful not to disturb the sleeping bodies around you. A cool draft seeps through the entrance as you crawl outside. The air is thick with mist and carries the smell of damp bark mixed with the faint musk of distant animals. You stand still for a moment, your senses alert. The forest holds its breath in a way that makes your heart beat more slowly, more deliberately. Something is moving out there. The trees appear as tall shadows, their branches heavy with dripping water. Every shape seems to shift behind the fog. You close your eyes briefly, relying on sound instead of sight. Leaves rustle. Underbrush trembles. A branch snaps somewhere far enough not to alarm you fully, but close enough that it draws your attention. You know that predators roam more freely during storms. Rain masks their scent and muffles the noise of their movements. It also makes sleeping humans more vulnerable. You grip a sturdy branch for reassurance, feeling its rough surface steady your nerves. A respected archaeological interpretation rises in your mind as you stand in the dimness. Many early human sites indicate that nighttime guardianship was a shared responsibility. People took turns resting lightly near shelter entrances or staying awake entirely during difficult nights. Not out of heroism, but out of necessity. One pair of ears could save everyone from an approaching threat. You exhale slowly, understanding your role tonight. You move a few steps away from the shelter, careful not to splash loudly in puddles. The earth is uneven beneath your feet. Water runs across the ground in twisting streams that slither silently through fallen leaves. You crouch beside a large tree, resting your back against its trunk, and let your eyes adjust to the faint movements ahead. Then you hear it, a low, distant growl carried on the wet air. Not aggressive, just part of an animal's natural call. It echoes softly through the foliage, vibrating the space around you. Goosebumps rise along your arms. You grip your branch tighter. You peer into the mist. A shape moves slowly between the trees. Large, dark, and steady. Maybe a boar. Maybe something larger. Whatever it is searching for dry ground just like you and your group. You remain absolutely still, watching through the shifting curtains of rain. A lesser-known observation from prehistoric studies drifts through your thoughts. Some researchers suggest that early humans noticed patterns in how animals behaved during long storms. Predators often roamed closer to human shelters not to hunt, but to share the same dry spaces. Whether this is fully accurate or a romantic idea, you cannot help thinking of it now. The creature out there may be seeking comfort, not conflict. But you remain cautious. The shape moves quietly, its weight disturbing small puddles. It sniffs the air, then turns away, fading into the fog like a ghost. You release a breath you did not realize you were holding, and feel your shoulders relax. The forest seems to relax with you, the tension lifting just slightly. You return to the shelter entrance and sit on a low stone, keeping watch. The fire from earlier has died down, but the residual warmth remains trapped inside the leafy dome. You glance in and see the group sleeping peacefully, their bodies curled close together. The rhythm of their breathing creates a quiet harmony with the rain. As you sit there, another debated question from scholars surfaces in your thoughts. Some experts believe prehistoric people deliberately slept in shorter cycles during dangerous weather, waking periodically to check their surroundings. Others argue that the depth of exhaustion forced people into long, heavy sleep regardless of external threats. Watching the group now, you see a bit of both. Some remain motionless, consumed by deep rest. Others shift slightly, whispering half-formed dreams before settling again. You stay alert, but your mind begins to drift. You listen to the rain as if it is telling a story. The drops fall faster on the leaves above the shelter, creating a steady drumbeat that fills the entire clearing. Farther away, the rain sounds softer, almost fragile, as it lands on moss. The forest sends layered waves of sound toward you. Each one blends into the next until you cannot tell where one rhythm ends and another begins. In the middle of this natural symphony, you hear another faint rustle from the undergrowth. You turn your head quickly, but the sound fades. Probably a small creature, maybe a hare taking advantage of the soft ground to dig for hidden roots. You do not rise. Instead, you remain present, listening closely. A child inside whimpers in their sleep. You glance back. Their mother shifts, placing a gentle hand on their shoulder. The child quiets instantly. The tenderness of the gesture softens your chest. You think again about the role of guardians during wet nights. Protecting the group is not only about physical threats, it is also about maintaining calm. Fear spreads easily in close quarters, especially when the outside world feels unpredictable. Your presence here at the entrance is a quiet reassurance, a silent promise that the storm has not taken control. You rise slowly and walk a short loop around the shelter. You touch the vines that hold the leafy roof in place, checking their strength. They remain taut. The moss barriers still block most of the creeping water. The walls glisten with fresh droplets but hold firm against the storm. You pause near a cluster of ferns not far from the shelter. Their fronds tremble under the weight of rain, but their roots cling stubbornly to the earth. You brush your fingertips along the leaves, feeling the cold moisture gather at the tips. A faint, unusual scent drifts through the air. You inhale deeply, rotting wood mixed with wet fur. You turn slowly toward its source. The scent is not close, but it signals that another animal has passed recently. You kneel and examine the ground. Fresh tracks press into the damp soil. Paw prints. Not large, but wide enough to belong to a medium-sized predator passing through in search of drier ground. You stand and return quietly to the shelter. The forest holds many stories tonight, and you have listened to enough of them. You resume your seat at the entrance and keep watch. Rain continues to fall, creating a soft curtain that separates you from the deeper forest. Slowly, the night begins to fade into a faint grey dawn. The forest brightens enough for you to see clearer shapes in the distance. The tension in your shoulders eases. You let yourself stretch a little, rolling your neck until it loosens. Inside the shelter, people begin to stir. Someone yawns softly. Another shifts, brushing leaves away from their arm. A few eyes open, still heavy with dreams. They look toward you, and in their expressions you see quiet gratitude. They know you kept watch, even if no one speaks it aloud. You crawl inside at last, letting yourself rest on the warm leaf bedding. The group gathers slowly around the faint morning fire. You join them, feeling the warmth soak into your skin. Outside, the rain continues its steady song. Inside, you exhale, knowing you made it through another night. You sit with the group as the grey morning slowly strengthens outside the shelter. Rain still falls in tireless sheets, but the sound has softened into a low, steady hiss, almost like someone whispering across a stone floor. The fire near the entrance is little more than glowing embers now, but its faint warmth spreads gently through the shelter. People breathe slowly, stretching stiff limbs, rubbing sleep from their faces. You feel the heaviness of the night still clinging to your shoulders, but you also feel something steadier rising inside you. The knowledge that you kept your community safe settles like a warm stone in your chest. Someone adds a few twigs to the embers, and thin smoke rises, twisting upward before slipping through the vent in the leafy roof. You watch the smoke for a long, quiet moment. It reminds you that today you must begin another task, one as old as human survival itself. If this rain is to continue, the fire cannot be allowed to die entirely. Without warmth during storms, nights would become far more frightening. You step outside into the cool drizzle. The forest greets you with the earthy smell of soaked bark and the faint metallic hint of wet stone. Mist curls around your ankles as you walk. You crouch near a patch of moss where you placed a small stack of dry materials yesterday. Grass tufts, tiny branches, and bark shavings. Thanks to the overhang above, they remain mostly dry. You gather them in your arms and return to the shelter. Caring for the fire is a ritual practiced since long before memory. A familiar interpretation from archaeological studies comes to mind as you kneel beside the embers. At many prehistoric sites, layers of charcoal and burned bone indicate that early humans fed hearths continuously across seasons. Fires were rarely allowed to go cold. Instead, communities preserved living coals through every night and often carried them during migrations, protecting them like infants wrapped in layers of fiber and hide. Your hands move now as if remembering something ancient. You gently brush the ash aside to expose the glowing heart beneath. Others gather around you as you begin to feed the fire. You place thin branches along the edges of the ember bed, then add shredded bark. Heat rises slowly, warming your cheeks. With a careful breath, you blow air into the small hollow beneath the fuel. The ember brightens, then glows, then breathes out a thin flame. A faint murmur of relief ripples through the group. Fire is comforting not only for the warmth it brings, but for the sense of continuity. It signals that the world still holds stability even in a storm without end. As the flame strengthens, a detail less commonly mentioned in modern accounts drifts through your thoughts. Some researchers believe that certain communities used designated firekeepers. These individuals tended to the flames with consistent dedication, ensuring that embers never faded and that smoke rose each morning and evening as a steady reassurance. The practice may have carried symbolic meaning, but it could simply have been practical. Watching how your group gathers now, you sense both possibilities. Heat keeps the body alive, ritual keeps the mind steady. The fire crackles softly, its glow pulsing against the walls of the shelter. You sit beside it, letting warmth seep into your hands. Rain continues to slide along the shelter's leafy roof, each drop landing with a soft thud or a whispering brush. The sound wraps around the group, creating a quiet atmosphere that encourages reflection. After a few minutes, you rise and head into the forest in search of more firewood. The earth squishes beneath your feet with each step, releasing pockets of muddy water that splash against your ankles. You make your way toward a fallen tree you noticed the day before. Its trunk is massive, coated in moss and lichen, but certain sections are sheltered by the curved roots. You kneel and peer into the hollow beneath the roots. Inside, you find sticks that are still relatively dry. You gather them eagerly. The forest feels strangely gentle this morning. The rain patters softly through the canopy, and the undergrowth sways in slow movements. You inhale deeply, letting the cool air settle into your lungs. As you pick up each branch, you shake off the excess moisture and stack the wood into a tight bundle. The weight grows steadily, pulling your shoulders downward, but the task feels grounding. You carry the bundle back to the shelter and lay it beside the fire pit. The group continues their quiet morning activities. Some adjust the bedding. Others share leftover roots and berries, passing them around the circle. The crackling fire casts warm light across their faces. You kneel and add a thicker piece of wood to the flames. It catches slowly, the fire nibbling at the edges before settling into a steady burn. You watch closely, ensuring it does not smother the smaller flames. Maintaining balance between fuel, airflow, and heat is an art that has been practiced for tens of thousands of years. You can almost imagine the hands of your ancestors guiding your own. A child approaches and sits beside you, watching the fire with wide eyes. You smile softly and gesture toward the glowing coals. Children often learn these skills early, not through words but by observing. You pick up a slender branch and place it gently into the flames, demonstrating patience. The fire responds with a soft curl of orange light. The child nods, a quiet understanding forming in their expression. As the morning passes, you begin to notice how the rhythm of tending the fire shapes the mood of the shelter. Warmth spreads more evenly. People relax more deeply. Even the sound of the rain seems quieter from within the circle of flickering light. Fire does not just warm the skin, it calms the mind. You feel your own thoughts settle as you watch the flames sway. A long-standing discussion among researchers returns to you as you gaze into the fire. Some specialists suggest that nighttime hearth tending may have been one of the earliest forms of shared meditation. The simple act of watching flames flicker, adjusting wood at the right moments, and listening to the subtle crackles could ease anxiety and slow breathing. Whether intentional or not, the effect is undeniable. Sitting here, you feel the fire's rhythm blend with your heartbeat. You lean back on your hands and let the warmth gather across your face. Eventually, you rise again and step outside. The rain has lightened to a thin veil, creating shimmering ripples on the puddles scattered across the clearing. Thin streams of runoff trickle through the earth like tiny silver snakes. You follow one stream to a small dip near the base of a tree. The water flows steadily, shaping a tiny channel as it moves downslope. You kneel and scoop soil from the wetter side, creating a shallow trench to redirect the water away from the shelter. You do not speak as you work. The forest's sounds speak for you. The hiss of rain, the splash of runoff, the distant creak of swaying branches. These sounds are companions, keeping you grounded in the present. When you return to the shelter, the fire burns stronger than before. People are gathered around it again, their hands extended toward the glow. You sit among them and allow the heat to soothe your cold fingers. Someone places a warm stone near your foot. You smile and thank them softly. Fire has a way of gathering people. It encourages closeness, story sharing, and silent understanding. Even without words, there is a sense of unity. As the flames dance higher, you feel the weight of the storm lift slightly from your shoulders. You know the rain will continue, perhaps for days. But this small glowing hearth will stay alive, because you keep it alive. The group's safety depends on that shared effort. You close your eyes, listening to the fire and the rain. Both sounds blend into a single rhythm. Inside the shelter, surrounded by flickering warmth, you feel calm again. You remain by the fire for a while longer, letting its warmth settle into your chest before standing to stretch your legs. Outside the shelter, the storm feels heavier again. Rain thickens into long streaks that fall with weight, striking leaves and branches in steady rhythms. You step out into the clearing and tilt your head slightly, letting cool droplets wash across your forehead. The forest hums with life shaped by water. Every scent, every movement, every distant sound is soaked in rain. You walk a little farther, following the soft, downward slope behind the shelter. The ground becomes slick beneath your feet, and you test each step carefully. The air grows cooler as you descend, and soon you hear the unmistakable rush of rising water, a deep, rolling sound. It vibrates through the soles of your feet before it reaches your ears. You push aside a curtain of wet leaves and see the nearby river swollen beyond its usual size. The water moves faster than you have seen in days, churning and twisting as it carves its path through the forest. Muddy waves slap against the banks. White foam clings to crooked roots jutting from the edge. The river is no longer peaceful. It is restless, powerful, unpredictable. You crouch near the bank, keeping a safe distance. The air around the river feels colder, infused with the sharp scent of churned earth. Raindrops disappear instantly into the rushing water, swallowed without a trace. The surface swells and sinks again, pulsing like a living creature. A widely accepted archaeological observation surfaces in your thoughts as you watch the river rise. Many ancient settlements were established near water sources for food, travel, and everyday tasks. Yet excavations also reveal signs of seasonal displacement. When rivers swelled, communities often relocated to higher ground until the floodwaters retreated. The unpredictability of water shaped entire patterns of movement. You feel that truth deeply now. The storm has been long, the river is responding, and your group must adapt. You stand and follow the bank upstream. Rain-soaked branches brush your shoulders as you walk. Each step sends ripples across the thin pools forming on the forest floor. The further you go, the louder the river becomes, until you reach a point where a fallen tree has created a natural dam. Water crashes against it, spraying upward in glistening arcs. The current pulls at the roots and debris caught beneath the trunk. You watch closely and realize that if the water rises much more, the tree may shift or break apart. A peculiar but intriguing fragment of ancient lore enters your mind. Some early groups may have believed rising rivers carried messages from distant ancestors. Floods were sometimes interpreted as warnings to move camp or strengthen shelters. While there is no definitive proof of this belief, the idea lingers in your thoughts. Perhaps ancient people used such interpretations to help make sense of unpredictable forces. You step back from the fallen tree, feeling the vibration of rushing water in your chest. The river's voice is clear. Your group cannot sleep too close to this side of the clearing tonight. You turn and retrace your steps. Water flows across the ground in thin streams that snake toward the river, carrying small leaves along with them. You listen for other sounds as you walk. Thunder rumbles far off, distant but present. The storm has not finished with you yet. As you near the shelter again, you spot a few members of the group waiting by the entrance. Concern is etched into their expressions. They have noticed the rising water too. You gesture for them to follow and lead them toward the vantage point where the swollen river can be seen clearly. When they witness the state of the water, worry spreads through the group. A few exchange quiet comments. Others point toward the higher ground beyond the clearing. Instinct moves quickly among people who have weathered many storms. They know danger when they see it. A long-standing discussion among researchers enters your mind as you listen to your companions. There is debate about whether early humans preferred higher sleeping ground or sheltered lowland areas during prolonged storms. Some argue that height reduced flood risk. Others believe lowland vegetation offered more cover and warmth. Watching the river now, you understand why opinions diverge. Terrain changes, weather shifts. What is safe one night may not be safe the next. You lead the group back to the shelter, and together you begin clearing a new area on slightly higher ground. The incline is modest, but enough to reduce the risk of water pooling during the night. Several members gather fallen branches to reinforce the shelter walls. Others tighten the vines supporting the leafy roof. You check the bedding inside and notice that water has begun creeping along the edges. You gather more moss from the forest floor and pack it against the base of the structure, creating a thicker barrier. Your fingers become cold from handling wet soil, but the work grounds you. Each motion is a promise of safety for the night ahead. The fire still burns steadily, and the warm light fills the shelter. You add a few thicker logs to strengthen it against the incoming storm. Sparks rise briefly, then fade into the air. The flames grow taller, casting bright reflections on the damp leaves overhead. The group sits close around the fire again, their bodies forming a protective circle. You speak softly, explaining what you saw at the river. Faces grow thoughtful, a few nod with resolve. Others glance toward the sound of rising water. Together, you prepare for the night. Once everything is secured, you step outside again to check the river. Rain continues to fall heavily, and the water climbs higher along the banks. You hear the crack of shifting wood, where the fallen tree struggles against the current. It is not far from failing. You step back, reassured that moving the sleeping area was the right choice. The forest darkens as afternoon turns to evening. Lightning flashes behind the clouds, turning the wet leaves silver for a heartbeat, before plunging the world back into grey shadow. The sound of thunder follows several moments later, low and rolling. You stand beneath a broad canopy of branches, letting the rain wash down your arms. In the distance, the river churns with relentless energy. But here, in the shelter you built, your group will sleep above the rising water, warmed by fire, protected by careful preparation. You return inside and settle onto the leaf bedding. The fire crackles softly. The shelter hums with rain. The group breathes together in the dim, flickering light. You close your eyes, feeling the storm outside but no longer fearing it. You drift slowly into rest, knowing the river can roar as loudly as it wants. You are ready for it. You open your eyes to the faintest glow of grey light filtering through the seams of the shelter. The rain has not stopped. It never stops. It taps steadily above your head like an endless line of fingers drumming on stretched hide. But something is different this morning. The air feels cooler, heavier, and carries a stronger scent of stone. When you breathe in, you taste minerals on your tongue, almost metallic, like the earth itself has melted into the rainfall. You stretch your limbs and push yourself upright. A few people nearby stir but do not fully wake. The fire has burned low, leaving a soft, ruddy glow that pulses beneath a thin shell of ash. You feed it a handful of small twigs, watching faint sparks rise and fade like fireflies lost in a storm. Then you crawl out of the shelter, brushing wet leaves from your shoulders. Outside, the world greets you with silence, broken only by rain. The clearing is dim, veiled in mist so thick it feels like a second skin. You inhale deeply again. The smell of wet stone dominates everything. Clean, cool, ancient. Water dripping from rock always carries its own voice, a sharper tone than rain hitting leaves. Today, that voice is everywhere. You step forward, drawn toward the cliffs that loom behind the shelter. Each raindrop that falls from their surface seems to echo faintly, creating a delicate chime that carries through the mist. You follow the sound until you reach the base of the cliff, placing your palm against the cold stone. Water runs down your fingers in thin, transparent ribbons. The stone feels smoother today, polished by countless hours of rainfall. You close your eyes and listen to the drops hitting the rock face. The sound is rhythmic, precise, and strangely calming. You imagine ancient humans before you discovering the same serenity in the slow, patient dripping of water on stone. A widely supported archaeological interpretation rises in your thoughts as you stand there. Many cave sites show evidence that early humans often rested near entrances rather than deep inside, partly because the dripping water produced steady sounds that masked sudden noises from wind or animals. These soft, repetitive tones may have helped people relax enough to fall asleep in harsh conditions. You run your fingers along the stone again, sensing this ancient logic. Nearby, a shallow pool has formed beneath a groove in the cliff where water collects and falls in a steady trickle. The surface shivers each time a drop lands. You crouch beside the pool and trail your fingertips through it. The water is cold, clear, and smooth, like liquid glass. Your reflection wavers in the ripples until it dissolves completely. You remain there for a moment, letting the slow music of dripping water fill your awareness. Each sound is delicate, but together, the drops form a steady lullaby that seeps into your thoughts. As you touch the stone again, a lesser-known interpretation comes to mind. Some researchers have suggested that dripping water inside caves may have influenced the rhythm of early music or early rituals. Individuals may have tapped stones or hollow logs in patterns that echoed the natural percussion around them. Whether this theory is fully accurate or not, you cannot help imagining someone long ago mimicking the sound you hear now, allowing the land itself to shape their expression. You rise slowly and continue walking along the cliffside. Rainwater flows down the rock in intersecting paths, creating tiny waterfalls that sparkle in the faint morning glow. You trail your hand beneath one of them, feeling the cold splash across your wrist. The water's chill sends a pleasant shiver up your arm. You reach a spot where the cliff curves inward, forming a small alcove. Inside, the dripping sound echoes more loudly, the stone amplifying each drop until it becomes almost musical. You sit in the alcove, resting your back against the cool wall. The ground beneath you is damp but not flooded. You fold your legs beneath you and breathe deeply, letting the rhythm settle your nerves. From here, you can see the clearing through a curtain of falling water. The shelter appears faint and green in the mist, shaped like a sleeping creature nestled into the earth. A few members of the group step outside, yawning and stretching their arms. Their movements look soft, blurred by the thin screen of water between you. The rain sings along the stone above you, forming layers of sound. Fast droplets, slow droplets, gentle flows, a faint trickle. You begin to understand why some people once believed spirits spoke through water. The cliffs feel alive, watching, whispering. Your mind drifts into another ongoing research discussion. Specialists still question whether early humans interpreted the smell of wet stone as a sign of approaching weather shifts. Some believe people used this scent to anticipate storms or understand when caves were too damp to sleep in. The sharp mineral aroma could have been a subtle warning. You smell it now, strong and persistent. It is both a comfort and a reminder that you must stay alert. You push yourself away from the alcove and walk back toward the clearing. The ground squelches beneath your feet, and the cold mud sticks to your ankles like thick paint. Mist swirls around your legs. You pause to watch droplets drip from a high stone ledge, landing one by one on a mossy patch below. The rhythm is slow, hypnotic. When you arrive at the shelter again, several group members have gathered near the fire pit. Someone is feeding the flames with thin branches, coaxing the fire back to life. The flames catch slowly, reflecting warm gold against the damp walls of the shelter. You kneel beside them, warming your hands. A child approaches you, curious about where you went. You point toward the cliffs and mimic the motion of water dripping. The child listens, his head tilted slightly. Then he smiles, imitating the sound softly with his tongue. The gentle repetition makes you laugh quietly. You rise and bring the child closer to the cliffs, guiding him to feel the smooth stone and hear the delicate rhythm. His eyes widen at the sound. Soon others join you, one by one, drawn by curiosity. You show them the alcove and the shimmering curtain of water. They sit beside you, listening in wordless peace. The sound becomes a shared moment of calm. People lean against the stone, close their eyes, and breathe with the rhythm. For a few minutes, the storm outside feels like a companion rather than a threat. Eventually, you guide everyone back to the shelter. The fire burns strongly now, filling the space with a warm glow. Steam rises from damp hides as they dry near the heat. You sit down beside the fire, your head still filled with the gentle memory of water hitting stone. You lie back on the fresh bedding, letting the muffled dripping from the cliffs echo in your mind. Your breathing slows, your eyes grow heavy. Tonight, when you sleep, it will be to the memory of stone humming with rainwater, the sound that soothed countless generations before you. You wake after a brief, shallow rest, unsure whether minutes or hours have passed. Inside the shelter, the air feels warmer than before. dense with the scent of drying hides and crushed leaves. The fire has dwindled to soft red coals, glowing like sleepy eyes that refuse to close. Outside, the rain shifts again. This time it falls in softer curtains, not the pounding sheets of earlier days. You listen closely. The change is subtle but meaningful. Each shift in rainfall tells a different story. You rise quietly, stepping over the still sleeping bodies curled around the bedding. As you crawl out of the leafy dome, cool air brushes your arms, carrying moisture that settles on your skin like invisible mist. The forest greets you with its constant breath. You inhale, and the air tastes clean, fresh, almost sweet with the scent of new rain striking old leaves. You close your eyes and simply listen. The storm has many voices, but today it speaks in patterns. Thin streams of water drip from branch to branch with a delicate rhythm. Soft hissing comes from areas where rain filters through thick vegetation. Somewhere deeper in the forest, you hear the heavier splash of drops landing on wide fern leaves. There is structure in the noise, a sequence that repeats and shifts like a living song. You step farther into the clearing, letting your bare feet sink into cool mud. The ground feels softer than before, shaped by hours of water sliding over it. Your toes disappear into the earth, squishing gently. Each movement creates tiny ripples that shimmer under the faint morning light. You tilt your head slightly as you listen again, trying to understand what the storm is telling you. A well-supported insight from paleoanthropology flickers into your thoughts. Many researchers believe that early humans learned to recognize changes in rainfall patterns to decide when to sleep, when to travel, and when to stay alert. Sudden shifts from heavy pounding rain to soft dripping often signaled breaks in the storm or approaching danger. People who listened carefully could understand when the environment was safe to rest and when it required vigilance. You take another breath and let the rhythm settle deep inside your mind. A few group members begin to crawl from the shelter behind you, drawn out by the changing sound. They stretch their arms upward, shaking droplets from their hair, blinking sleep from their eyes. Their movements are slow and gentle, as if the rain's softened tempo is guiding them. You walk a short distance into the trees, testing each step carefully so the mud does not pull too strongly at your heels. The forest is wrapped in thick mist that drifts like smoke between the trunks. Shapes blur and merge. The world has shrunk into a small cocoon of grey and green. As you walk, a seldom highlighted possibility from environmental studies slips into your thoughts. Some researchers believe that early humans learned to recognize not just the sound of rain, but also the rhythm of pauses between raindrops. Tiny gaps in the pattern may have signaled the transition between storm phases. People likely used these breaks to build fires, check surroundings, or slip into deeper rest. You stop walking and pay attention. You notice a faint change, a slight pause between clusters of drops, almost undetectable, but it recurs in a steady cycle. Rain falls for a few breaths, then lightens, falls again, lightens again. You feel the pattern seeping into your bones, a quiet prediction of the storm's direction. You return to the shelter and gather a few leaves to brush water from the roof. The structure holds firm, and the fire's warmth radiates gently behind you. A young girl approaches, rubbing her eyes with small fists. She asks in soft, hesitant murmurs whether the storm will grow louder again. You crouch and listen once more before answering. You tell her it might calm for a short while. Her shoulders ease at your reassurance. She sits beside you under a low branch, dripping with silver beads of water. Together you watch droplets gather on the leaves above. Each drop swells until it becomes heavy, then falls with a soft pat. You notice how the pattern repeats. Small drops, a pause, a larger drop, a longer pause. Even children can sense the rhythm once they focus. She imitates the sound with little taps of her fingers on her knee. You smile and tap along. As others wake and emerge from the shelter, they gather near you. Their faces reflect the same quiet curiosity. Everyone listens. Rain becomes a teacher, a guide. You decide to walk deeper into the forest to confirm what the rhythm might be predicting. A few others follow, You move together in silence. Water drips from ferns. Branches bow low under the weight of water. Mist clings to every shape, lending an unworldly softness to the forest. Eventually you reach a small ravine where water falls from the rocks in slow, deliberate streams. The sound differs from the rain, deeper, more resonant. You crouch and touch the surface of a small pool forming at the bottom. It vibrates gently with each drop, but the surface remains calm overall. The pool has not grown much in the night. This supports what your ears already sensed. The rain may be lightening, even if only briefly. You take this information back to the group. The shelter feels warmer when you return. The fire burns brighter now that more fuel has been added. People sit close, sharing warmth and quiet conversation. You settle beside them, shaking rain from your hair. The group listens as you explain what you observed. Heads nod slowly. Relief flickers across a few tired faces. The slowed rhythm of the storm gives everyone a chance to rest more deeply. You lie down close to the fire, letting the heat seep into your muscles. The bedding smells faintly of herbs and crushed leaves. Above you, the shelter roof catches the softened rain, releasing tiny drops that roll across its surface like beads of glass. The sound is different from yesterday, clearer, more delicate. Your thoughts drift back to the many possibilities researchers still discuss about ancient sleep cycles. Some specialists point out that storms may have guided when people allowed themselves to slip into deeper sleep. The absence of threatening sounds beneath a softened rhythm suggested temporary safety. Others argue that too much quiet could be suspicious, forcing minds to stay half awake. You understand both sides. Today, however, the softer rain feels like an invitation, a gentle push toward rest. You shift onto your side and listen again. Rain, fire crackling, steady breathing nearby. You feel your eyelids grow heavy. The storm is no longer an enemy. It has become a lullaby, composed of countless subtle rhythms that tell you when to stay watchful and when to let go. You let out a slow breath, sink into the bedding, and allow the softened rain to guide you into brief but peaceful sleep. You wake hours later to the faint flash of light flickering beyond your closed eyelids. It is not firelight. It is too cool, too pale. When you open your eyes, the shelter is dim, but you can see thin lines of brightness slipping through the seams in the leafy roof. Lightning, silent for the moment, but unmistakable. You sit up slowly, careful not to disturb the sleepers curled around you. Rain still falls, but now the drops seem lighter, finer, almost silvery when the sky flashes. You crawl toward the entrance of the shelter and step outside, letting the cool air wash across your face. The forest feels larger and quieter than before, as if everything is holding its breath. Mist drifts lazily between the trees, and each flash of lightning turns the fog into a pale, glowing veil. You walk a few steps into the clearing, bare feet sinking gently into the soft ground. Rain slicks your skin, but you barely feel the cold. Your eyes lift toward the sky. The clouds shift in long rolling shapes, glowing faintly from within each time lightning blooms behind them. You count the seconds, waiting for thunder, but none comes. Silent lightning, just flashes of distant storms traveling across the horizon. A well-known interpretation from ancient climate studies drifts into your thoughts as you watch the sky. Many early humans lived in regions where silent lightning storms were common, especially during transitions between seasons. These storms often signaled heavy rain or shifts in temperature. People likely learned to read these distant flashes as signs of what the next few days might bring. You sense that truth now as you study the sky. A soft footstep behind you causes you to glance back. One of the older hunters has joined you. His hair hangs in wet strands, and his eyes reflect the flickering sky. He asks quietly whether the lightning is moving closer. You listen carefully, waiting for thunder again. Still nothing. You shake your head. Not yet. The hunter stands beside you, arms crossed against the cool air. You both watch the distant glow spreading across the clouds. The flashes appear in soft waves, illuminating the silhouette of bare branches and soaked leaves. The forest transforms for a heartbeat each time the sky brightens, turning into a pale, dreamlike world. A lesser-known observation from prehistoric art studies enters your thoughts. Some carved stones show zigzag patterns believed by a few researchers to represent lightning. Whether these marks recorded fear, fascination, or simple observation is uncertain, but it is difficult to imagine early humans ignoring something so striking. The sky becomes a performance during storms, a shifting canvas of white and grey. The hunter murmurs that lightning reminds him of great spirits moving through the clouds. You smile slightly. You have heard versions of that idea from different groups across the land. Even today, standing beneath this trembling sky, the thought does not feel unreasonable. You decide to walk farther from the shelter, curious to see how the forest behaves under this kind of storm. The hunter follows silently. Rain taps lightly on the broad leaves above you. Puddles glow pale for an instant whenever the sky flashes. You notice that the animals are quiet. No rustling, no calls, nothing but the soft hiss of falling rain. You pause near a large tree whose thick roots twist across the ground like ancient ropes. Lightning reveals their shapes in quick bursts before shadows swallow them again. The pattern repeats until you begin to anticipate it. Brightness, darkness, brightness again. The world becomes a slow blink. A conversation from environmental anthropology returns to you as you stand beneath the tree. Some scholars have argued that silent lightning may have lulled early humans into calmer states than storms accompanied by thunder. Without the explosive sound, the sky's flashes became something to watch, not fear. Others counter this idea, saying that unpredictability could create unease. Watching the sky now, you see both possibilities. The lightning is beautiful, and also unsettling. The hunter places a hand on your shoulder and points toward the far side of the clearing. A tree stands tall against the horizon, its branches arching upward like open arms. Lightning flashes behind it, outlining its silhouette in silver light. For a moment, it looks almost carved, as if sculpted by the storm itself. You continue walking until you reach a ridge overlooking a shallow valley. From here, you can see more of the horizon. Each flash spreads across the sky like a sheet of pale fire, illuminating the shifting clouds. The valley below appears briefly, then vanishes into darkness. Grass glows for a heartbeat. Water ripples shine like liquid mirrors. Then all is quiet again. You sit on a large stone, rain dripping down your arms. The hunter sits beside you. Neither of you speaks for a while. The storm is speaking enough for both of you. Another ongoing discussion among researchers floats into your thoughts. Some believe that storms like this shaped early spiritual imagination. Flashes of skylight, silent or loud, could inspire stories, rituals, or attempts to understand forces beyond human control. Whether this shaped daily life or only nighttime fears remains debated, but when you watch the sky now, you feel a deep, ancient awe. You lean back slightly and rest your palms on the wet stone. Lightning flashes again, bright enough to paint every drop of rain with pale light. The forest becomes a momentary painting, trees swaying like dark brushstrokes, mist swirling like soft ink, stones glistening like polished bone. You feel the breath catch in your throat. The hunter finally speaks. He says the lightning feels farther away now. You listen again, counting the space between flashes. The intervals grow longer. You nod slowly. The storm is drifting sideways along the horizon, not toward you. But you remain seated. The sky continues to pulse with scattered light, and watching it feels oddly soothing. The rain's rhythm blends with the sky's rhythm, until the world becomes one continuous motion. You lean your head back, letting droplets slide across your cheeks. Eventually, the hunter rises and returns to the clearing, leaving you with the sky. You stay for several more minutes, letting the last flashes linger in your memory. The storm feels like a distant storyteller passing through the night. When you return to the shelter, the group is awake and tending the fire. The leafy roof glows warmly from within. A few sleepy faces look toward you. Someone hands you a warmed piece of root. You bite into it, letting the soft texture ease your hunger. You settle near the fire, drying your arms and listening once more to the softened rain. The flashes outside grow weaker, then vanish entirely. Darkness settles fully over the clearing. You stretch out on the leaf bedding and close your eyes. The memory of the glowing horizon remains behind your eyelids, like gentle light woven into your thoughts. You inhale slowly. The storm will return in its own time. But for now, the sky has told its story, and you let the lingering calm pull you gradually towards sleep. You wake to the faint tremble of your stomach, reminding you that rest alone is not enough. The storm might ease and swell in its own rhythm, but hunger grows steadily no matter what the sky decides. You sit up inside the shelter, brushing stray leaves from your arms. The fire burns low but steady, its glow warming the dim space. Others in the group begin to wake as well, stretching their legs and blinking the sleep from their eyes. The air inside is warm and smells faintly of dried roots and damp hides. You crawl out through the entrance and step into the muted grey morning. The rain continues its steady fall, neither harsh nor gentle, simply persistent. Droplets gather on your eyelashes and slide down your cheeks. You take a long breath. Today you must forage, even in this untiring downpour. Survival means moving when you would rather lie still. Few things in the Stone Age wait for the weather to improve. You gather a group of 3 others, each carrying a small hide pouch slung over their shoulders. Together you step out of the clearing and move deeper into the forest. Mud clings to your ankles with every step, pulling slightly at your feet as though the earth itself is reluctant to let you go. Rain blurs the edges of the world, turning sharp outlines into soft shapes. The forest is dense today, its leaves swollen, its branches heavy with droplets that fall in slow intervals. The rain layers the soundscape so completely that you have to lean close to hear your companion's whispers. But there is comfort in that too. The storm keeps predators quieter, and it masks the noise of your footsteps. As you move, a well-established insight from ancient subsistence studies surfaces in your thoughts. Evidence from prehistoric camps shows that foraging often continued through even the worst storms, because delaying too long risked hunger spreading through the group. Early humans had to search for edible roots, nuts, insects, or small animals regardless of rain or cold. The need for calories never waited for clear skies. Your body understands that truth on an instinctive level. You push aside a hanging curtain of wet vines and lead the group toward a patch of tall ferns. Beneath the fronds, the ground is slightly sheltered, and small plants often take advantage of the relative dryness. You crouch and begin brushing aside leaves. The soil smells rich, alive, and when you dig deeper with your fingers, you find several tubers nestled among the roots. They are small, knobby things, but they will fill stomachs tonight. One of the others laughs softly as she picks up a wriggling beetle from beneath a stone. She holds it up with a proud grin. You chuckle in return. Some ancient groups, as hinted by residues found in old hearth remains, likely used insects not only as emergency food, but sometimes as everyday protein. Whether this particular beetle tastes pleasant is questionable, but hunger softens most judgments. She slips it into her pouch. The rain lightens briefly, giving you a moment of clearer vision. Through the softened haze, you spot a tree with rough bark and wide branches. You gesture for the group to follow. This species often drops edible seeds after heavy storms, shaken loose by the force of the rain. When you reach it, you run your fingers across the trunk. The bark is wet and coarse. Beneath the canopy, the ground is scattered with small dark seeds. You gather a handful and taste one. Bitter, but safe. You deposit several into your pouch. One of your companions stands suddenly, raising his hand for silence. You stop moving, listening carefully. The rain disguises many sounds, but beneath it, you detect a faint movement, a rustle, a shift of weight on wet soil. You narrow your eyes and scan the trees. A deer emerges slowly from behind a cluster of ferns. It pauses, head lowered, nibbling at the drenched foliage. Its coat is darkened by rain, and droplets slide off its ears. You freeze, not wanting to startle it. The others remain perfectly still as well. For a moment, all of you simply watch the animal move through the mist like a calm spirit. A brief thought passes through your mind about ongoing conversations among researchers. Many specialists believe that early human schedules were shaped significantly by the movements of animals during storms. Heavy rainfall could change access to prey and edible plants, forcing people to adjust their routines. Some scholars still disagree on how much storms affected hunting strategy. Watching the deer now, you see the complexity. Storms bring animals closer but also make tracking harder. You do not hunt the deer today. You have enough to gather, and chasing it through slippery mud could be dangerous. Instead, you let it wander away, its shape dissolving into the grey haze. You continue moving. Rain drips from branches in steady lines. Your clothing grows heavier, soaked through. Mud splashes high up your legs. But the forest continues to offer what it can. You collect herbs with serrated leaves that carry a sharp scent when crushed. They might flavor tonight's meal or soothe an upset stomach. You find mushrooms growing along a fallen log. You examine their caps carefully. A few are safe, others are questionable. You take only the ones you recognize with certainty. Ancient people were skilled at reading the forest, but mistakes were often deadly. You whisper a quiet thanks as you place the good mushrooms into your pouch. As you work, rainwater flows off leaves and runs down your neck. You shiver slightly but continue. The forest hums around you. The storm is less violent today, but the air is still heavy with water. Your group gradually fills their pouches. When the weight becomes noticeable, you decide it is time to return. The clearing sits uphill, and climbing the slope requires slow, careful steps. Mud slides beneath your feet, but you brace against tree trunks and roots. Your breath becomes steadier as you near the top. When you enter the clearing again, the shelter glows warmly from within. The fire's light flickers against the leafy roof. Several group members smile when they see what you have gathered. They take your pouch and begin preparing the food. The rain continues its gentle fall, forming soft ripples in puddles scattered across the clearing. You sit near the fire, stretching your legs, letting warmth soak in. Steam rises from your wet clothes as the heat reaches them. A child sits beside you, watching eagerly as you help slice the tubers into thin segments. He asks where the roots came from. You describe the forest floor, the ferns, and the hidden pockets of earth. His eyes widen with fascination. The mood in the shelter grows warm and lively. People share observations about the forest. They joke about who slipped the most in the mud. They examine the mushrooms with curious fingers. Foraging during endless rain is tiring, but it brings people together in ways you can feel deeply. Every bite of food is earned. Every discovery is communal. When the meal is cooked, the smell fills the shelter with earthy steam. You take the first bite. The tubers are soft, slightly sweet. The herbs give a sharp kick. The mushrooms melt gently on your tongue. Warm food spreads through your body like slow sunlight. The fire crackles. The shelter hums with quiet conversation. Rain whispers above your head. You lean back on the bedding, satisfied, and let your eyes drift closed. The storm may continue, but you have eaten well. You have worked with the forest. You have listened to the rain. For now, that is enough. You wake after a short nap taken beside the dying warmth of the fire, and the first thing you notice is the chill that creeps in through the edges of the shelter. The storm has shifted again. Instead of steady drizzle, the rain now falls in uneven bursts. Heavy drops strike the leafy roof with dull thuds, then fade into softer, misty rainfall. You open your eyes fully, blinking away sleep, and notice a thin line of moisture seeping along one side of the shelter. You sit up. A few members of the group are already awake, pressing clumps of moss and leaves against the damp spots. The shelter has held well through many hours of rain, but even the strongest leaf walls weaken under constant downpour. You stretch your back, feeling stiffness in your shoulders, then crawl outside to assess the weather. The forest greets you with cold air that wraps around your arms and settles sharply along your spine. You inhale deeply, tasting the earthy scent of soaked soil mixed with something harsher, clay. The ground ahead looks darker than usual. Water has washed away the top layer of leaves, exposing patches of raw earth beneath. You kneel and press your fingers into the clay-rich soil. It clings to your skin like wet paint. A familiar insight from archaeological studies resurfaces as you rub the clay between your fingertips. At certain ancient sites, traces of clay and packed earth are found near shelter remains. Many researchers believe early humans used clay as a form of primitive waterproofing, sealing gaps in structures or coating the sides of shelters to keep out persistent rain. This interpretation makes sense now more than ever. The mud beneath your nails hints at a useful solution. You gather a handful of the thick clay and examine its texture. Smooth, dense, sticky enough to shape. You smile faintly. The forest offers everything you need if you take the time to notice. Beside you, a young woman joins your side. She kneels and dips her own hands into the wet earth. You explain your idea. She nods and begins gathering more clay. Together, you move along the slope behind the shelter, searching for patches where runoff has gathered the richest deposits. As you scoop the material into a large hide pouch, an intriguing but lesser-known detail comes to mind. Some researchers suggest early communities experimented with mixing clay and crushed bark fibers to make tougher, more durable coatings. Bark fibers help the clay resist cracking when it dried. You tear small strips from a fallen tree's outer bark and crumble them into the clay mixture. The fibers stick easily, forming a thick, sticky paste. Others from the group join the effort. Soon you have enough clay to begin sealing the shelter. The leafy walls have held admirably, but water has found ways to creep in through subtle gaps. You crouch beside one such gap and press the clay mixture into it, smoothing it with your palm. The cold mud sends a shiver through you, but the satisfaction of seeing the gap seal over warms your chest. As the group works, someone comments on how strange it feels to smear mud over leaves and vines. You chuckle. Survival often asks for unusual choices. The clay clings well, molding to the surface as if the shelter were a pot you are shaping together. A long-standing conversation among environmental anthropologists briefly enters your thoughts. Some specialists propose that techniques like this could have sparked early experimentation, leading to pottery traditions much later. When ancient people learned how clay behaved in different conditions, they might have felt inspired to shape it intentionally for storage or cooking. It is hard to know for sure, but the idea feels plausible as you watch clay spread across the shelter walls. The rain continues to fall, but the clay repels the water, sending droplets rolling downward in smooth lines. You test one patch with your fingertip. The layer feels sturdy, slightly textured from the bark fibers within. You nod with satisfaction and move on to the next spot. After sealing several sections, you decide to address the area around the entrance where water tends to collect. The ground becomes muddy quickly there, soaking the bedding at night. You scoop a shallow trench leading water away from the shelter and pack the sides with clay to encourage flow. As you work, a child watches curiously, then begins shaping tiny clay figures nearby. You smile at his creativity. Even practical materials invite play. The smell of sap drifts through the air as you scrape bark from a nearby tree. This tree produces a sticky resin known for its water-resistant properties. You remember hearing stories from elders that some communities in the deep past coated their clothing or shelter openings with resin to block moisture. While modern evidence is limited, the idea fascinates you now. You gather a small amount and smear it in a thin layer along the shelter's inner seams, reinforcing the clay. Rain splashes against your back, cold and sharp. You straighten and stretch your shoulders. The forest around you has grown darker again as clouds thicken above the canopy. The sound of droplets hitting clay is different from their impact on leaves. A deeper tone, more muted. You listen carefully. The pattern becomes strangely soothing. As you finish applying the resin, a companion calls your attention to another useful material. thick slabs of bark that have fallen from a large tree. The curved pieces can be fitted like shingles along the upper edge of the shelter. You help gather the bark, bending a few pieces to check their strength. They are sturdy enough to hold shape. You position them along the top of the leafy dome, overlapping edges so each piece shields the one beneath. The structure takes on a sturdier look, like a creature armored against the storm. You fasten the bark with twisted vines, weaving them through small gaps in the leaf layers. A steady rhythm of rain on bark begins, different from the earlier tones. It sounds like a low, earthy drum. You pause to appreciate the music nature creates without effort. Once the shelter is sealed and reinforced, the group steps back to admire the work. Even in the gloomy rain, the structure looks stronger, thicker, more confident. You smile, proud of what you have shaped together. You return inside. The space feels warmer now that gaps have been filled. The fire glows more brightly in the dim shelter, casting soft light across the clay-coated walls. Steam rises from damp hides as they slowly dry near the flames. Some members prepare a simple meal. Others sit quietly, letting the rain's muffled rhythm guide their thoughts. You stretch out on the bedding, feeling the improved dryness beneath you. The clay has worked. A sense of calm spreads through your chest. The storm may continue for many more days, but tonight you will lie beneath stronger protection. Water will slide away instead of creeping inward. The shelter has become a fortress, shaped by your hands and strengthened by the earth itself. You close your eyes, listening to the rain strike bark, clay, and leaves. Each sound blends into a steady, soothing chorus. You breathe deeply and let the warmth of the fire and the peace of accomplishment carry you gently toward rest. You wake from a drifting, dreamlike sleep, with the faint sense that something outside the shelter has changed. Rain still falls in steady curtains, but beneath that familiar sound you hear another rhythm. Soft movements, occasional snaps of branches, gentle thuds muffled by soaked earth. You lie still for a moment, listening closely. The forest is awake, with creatures seeking refuge just as you do. You rise slowly, trying not to disturb the others curled against the warm leaf bedding. The fire has faded to glowing embers, spreading only a faint circle of light across the dim shelter. You crouch near the entrance and peer out into the grey morning. Mist moves in slow currents across the clearing, making shapes appear and vanish. Your breath mixes with the cool air and forms a pale wisp. When you step outside, your feet sink into soft mud. Water coats every surface, turning leaves into slick mirrors that shimmer each time lightning flashes behind thick clouds. You hear another gentle rustle, this time closer. You freeze, listening. The sound is not threatening. It is cautious, like something testing the ground before stepping forward. You take a few careful steps toward the tree line, keeping your posture relaxed so whatever is out there does not feel challenged. Through the mist, you notice movement. A small animal emerges from behind a log. It is a fox, drenched and shivering, fur clinging to its thin frame. It glances at you, pauses, then continues sniffing the ground in slow circles. You watch quietly, allowing the creature its space. A commonly accepted observation from ancient living site studies enters your thoughts as the fox moves. Early human camps often sat near paths used by many animal species. Storms blurred scent trails and forced creatures to wander more widely. During long periods of rain, animals sometimes approached human shelters simply because they had nowhere else dry to go. You feel that truth now while watching the fox seek shelter beneath a large fern. The fox is not alone. Another sound swims through the rain, a soft grunt. You turn toward it, scanning the trees. A pair of wild boars emerges into the clearing. Their backs glisten with water, and their noses move constantly as they search the forest floor for softened roots. You step farther from the shelter, not out of fear, but to ensure they do not come too close to the entrance. Boars avoid people when possible, but accidental encounters are dangerous. You raise your hand gently, not to scare them, but to make sure they see your movement. The larger boar pauses, eyes gleaming faintly. It snorts once, then turns away and leads the smaller one toward the edge of the clearing. Their hooves sink into the mud with loud squelches. You notice how the rain has softened the forest so much that even heavy animals move quietly. One of your companions joins you at the entrance. She rubs her arms against the cold and whispers about hearing distant calls in the night. You nod, explaining that the forest is crowded with creatures avoiding flooded areas. She leans forward to peer through the mist. The fox darts deeper into the foliage, as if embarrassed to be seen. The boars disappear behind a wall of dripping leaves. As you stand together, a lesser-known insight from prehistoric ecology returns to you. Some researchers propose that constant rain created temporary territories shared by humans and animals alike. Storms forced boundaries to shift, and species that normally avoided one another sometimes rested in close proximity. These moments of tension and mutual caution likely shaped early understandings of animal behavior. Watching the forest now, you sense how that knowledge would evolve naturally. You decide to walk a little deeper toward the tree line to observe the shifting patterns more clearly. Your companion remains near the shelter while you move forward alone. Rain drips from high branches in slow threads. Mist curls low, hiding the small details of the ground. You place your feet carefully, avoiding loud splashes. A faint rustle to your left catches your attention. You crouch slowly behind a wet shrub and wait. Moments later, a large shape moves into view. A deer steps through the fog, its ears flicking constantly. Its body trembles with each cold drop of rain. You feel a swell of sympathy as you watch it sniff at a patch of grass flattened by the storm. Then another sound interrupts the quiet scene. A steady clicking. You know that rhythm well. It is the sound of a predator adjusting its footing on wet stone. Your pulse quickens, but you remain still. The deer raises its head sharply, eyes wide. A large cat, perhaps a lynx or wild mountain cat, appears behind it. The predator's fur is soaked, each step deliberate. You hold perfectly still, your breath shallow. But the cat does not pounce. Instead, it simply watches the deer, both creatures too exhausted from the storm to act aggressively. After a tense moment, the deer turns and slips away into the mist. The cat hesitates, then follows slowly but without intention to attack. You realize that the storm has drained energy from everything in the forest. Predators conserve strength during endless rain. Prey moves cautiously, aware that the storm hides sounds but also saps endurance. A thoughtful interpretation from wildlife behavior scholars flickers through your mind. Some believe prolonged storms reduce active hunting among predators, creating short periods of uneasy peace. Evidence from ancient migration routes supports the idea that predators and prey sometimes rested near the same shelters without conflict. You sense the possibility now, watching the tired cat vanish behind trees. You exhale softly and return to the clearing. Inside the shelter, the group is awake. Someone feeds the fire, coaxing flames from the embers. Children cluster near adults, rubbing sleep from their eyes. A few exchange quiet whispers about hearing animals in the night. You sit beside them and share what you saw. Faces grow attentive. Concern blends with curiosity. You explain that most animals today are seeking dry ground or simple rest after long hours of rain. They are not roaming with sharp hunger. Still, caution is wise. The group discusses placing a few stones near the perimeter to alert them to heavier animals passing through. The idea spreads quickly. People gather rocks from nearby and arrange them in a loose ring. If a large creature moves too close, the stones will clatter and wake the nearest sleeper. Rain continues to fall, turning the clearing into a world of shifting silver and soft echoes. You step outside again, taking one last slow look at the forest. The fox, the deer, the boars, the silent cat, all of them shaped by the same storm that shapes you. You return to the bedding and settle between two companions. The crackling fire warms your legs. Rain hums above the clay-covered roof. Creatures move somewhere out there, but for the moment, the world feels balanced. You curl onto your side, letting the steady rhythm of the storm carry you toward rest once more. Animals and humans breathing through the same endless rain. You drift awake to the faint glow of the fire, unsure at first whether you are still dreaming. For a moment everything feels suspended. The steady rain continues, soft and even, but something inside the shelter has changed. You feel it in the air, in the weight of your breath, in the heaviness behind your eyelids. Sleep lingers longer than usual, clinging to your thoughts like mist clings to branches. You sit up slowly. The leaf bedding rustles beneath you. A few others stir nearby, murmuring quietly as they shift. One child curls deeper into a hide blanket, refusing to leave the comfort of warmth. The firelight dances on the clay-coated walls, turning them into soft orange waves. You rub your eyes and realize your mind feels different today. Thicker, heavier, as if the storm has seeped not only into the earth but into your dreams as well. You blink and breathe deeply, trying to dispel the fog inside your thoughts. Outside the shelter, the rain whispers with a gentler voice. You step out carefully, letting the cool air clear your senses. Mist drifts among the trees, curling around your feet like curious spirits. The forest is muted, softened by grey light that filters through the storm clouds. You walk a few steps from the shelter and pause. Your body feels languid, caught between waking and dreaming. You inhale the scent of wet leaves and fresh clay. The world around you seems to pulse faintly with the breath of the rain. A well-regarded perspective from studies of ancient cognition enters your thoughts. Many researchers believe constant storms shaped the mental states of early humans, altering sleep quality and influencing emotion. The endless rhythm of rain could lull the mind into deeper imaginative states or create a mild haze, making dreams more vivid and harder to separate from waking thoughts. You feel that truth now. Your dreams linger like soft shadows. You sit on a large stone beneath a low-hanging branch. Rain drips steadily from the leaves, tapping your shoulders with cool kisses. You close your eyes again, letting the distant echo of water blend with your drifting thoughts. Inside the shelter, others begin to rise. You hear hushed voices as they speak of strange dreams. One woman describes a vision of walking through a forest made entirely of water. Another talks about hearing voices shaped from the wind. Someone else mentions seeing glowing animals that vanished the moment she touched them. You listen quietly. These dreams feel familiar. Your own were tangled, filled with shapes that shimmered and dissolved. You saw rivers that flowed through the sky. You saw tree roots glowing beneath the soil. You saw the shelter breathe like a living creature. A seldom discussed interpretation from sleep researchers comes to mind. Some specialists think that early humans may have experienced more vivid or symbolic dreams during long storms, because conditions encouraged intermittent, shallow sleep. The constant noise of rainfall kept the mind half alert and half drifting, dreams blurred with reality. It is possible that myths, symbols, and early spiritual ideas were influenced by these in-between states. You breathe slowly, letting your own dreams settle fully into your memory. You rise from the stone and wander deeper into the forest. The ground feels softer today, and your feet sink slightly into the mud. Mist curls around your knees. Rain patters gently across wide leaves, creating soft chimes. You imagine walking through a world that exists between two realms, waking life and a dream shaped by water. As you pass a line of tall trees, you notice a peculiar pattern. Droplets cling to the branches in perfect rows, creating strings of shimmering beads. They tremble each time a breeze touches them. The sight stirs something in your mind. You step closer, mesmerized by the delicate arrangement. You reach out and touch one bead. It splits instantly, sending tiny rivulets down your knuckle. The image lingers in your thoughts, rain forming tiny jewels that dissolve the moment they are touched. You whisper quietly to yourself, describing the movement as if explaining it to someone unseen. The act steadies your mind. Then, from deeper in the forest, you hear soft laughter. You turn, startled, but see only mist drifting between trees. The laughter fades quickly but leaves a lingering warmth in your chest. You wonder whether you imagined it or whether someone else has wandered outside the shelter. The storm can distort sound in surprising ways. As you continue walking, another gentle memory returns to you. Some archaeologists argue that early humans may have interpreted certain dreamlike experiences during storms as meaningful messages. Not supernatural exactly, but guiding impressions that help them navigate uncertainty. Whether this is speculation or grounded in evidence, you understand how it could happen. The world feels different under endless rain, more porous, more open. You reach a shallow pool, fed by dripping water from above. Its surface ripples in perfect concentric rings, spreading outward endlessly. You crouch beside it, watching your reflection distort. Your face shifts into strange patterns each time a drop lands. You close your eyes again, letting the sound of water draw you inward. Moments pass. You lose track of time. When you open your eyes again, the mist feels lighter. You stand and return to the shelter, your mind still wrapped in a soft haze. The fire burns stronger now, filling the space with warm light. People sit near it, sharing food and stories of their dreams. You join them. Someone hands you a piece of roasted root. You chew slowly, the familiar earthy flavor anchoring you back in the present. A companion asks what you saw outside. You pause, searching for the right words. You describe the trembling droplets like beads of glass, the soft laughter carried by the wind, the dreams still clinging to your mind like threads of mist. She listens with interest, her eyes warm. Another group member shares his own wandering thoughts. He says the rain sounded like footsteps pacing above the shelter, though he knows it was only the storm. Someone else mentions that she dreamed of sleeping inside a giant leaf that folded around her like a cradle. You all smile at one another. These strange imaginings do not frighten anyone. They simply remind you that your minds are adjusting to the storm in their own ways. Eventually, you lie back on the bedding again. The fire crackles nearby. The rain whispers its endless lullaby above your head. Your eyes grow heavy once more. Sleep comes easily in this softened world, and your mind slips again into the drifting space between waking and dreaming. The storm continues outside, shaping the dreams of all who rest beneath its quiet command. You wake with a start, though no loud sound has disturbed you. Instead, it is a sensation along your spine, a subtle chill telling you that your body has shifted into a different kind of awareness. You blink slowly, letting your vision adjust to the dim interior of the shelter. The fire has burned low again, a small cluster of glowing coals breathing faint light into the clay-reinforced dome. Most of the group still sleeps, curled tightly against the leaf bedding, legs tucked, arms folded, each person instinctively minimizing the loss of warmth. You stretch your neck and feel the lingering heaviness in your limbs. Rain pounds softly above you, a steady hum that seems to cradle the entire shelter. You take a slow breath and realize the ground beneath you is no longer as cold as it once was. Your body has adapted. You have learned how to sleep in ways that conserve heat, though it feels like your muscles have been carved into new habits. You decide to step outside before the others wake. You crawl through the entrance and rise to your feet. The air meets you with a sharp coolness, but your skin does not flinch the way it would have days ago. Your body has learned the storm's breath. The rain falls in thin streams today, steady but not heavy. The sky above is a dense grey sheet with no hint of sunrise colours. The world holds one continuous tone of dimness. You walk forward onto the softened ground and feel your feet sink slightly with each step. You pause under a low branch, where water gathers at the tips and falls in fat droplets that strike your shoulders. You stand still for a while, simply listening. Your mind drifts to an insight often noted in studies of ancient movement. Evidence from fossilized footprints and sleeping areas suggests that early humans adapted their resting postures not only to conserve warmth, but also to avoid touching wet or cold surfaces directly. Bodies curled tightly, knees drawn to chest, arms wrapped close, forming a natural shield against the elements. You feel that instinct inside your own bones now. The way you slept last night was not accidental. It was shaped by the world pressing in from all sides. You take another slow breath. The forest seems quieter than usual. Even the animals that wandered near your shelter the previous night have retreated to deeper cover. The air feels thick with silence, interrupted only by the delicate tapping of rain against leaves. You begin to explore the area around the clearing. Mud squelches beneath your feet, but you move carefully. Rain washed away many of the shallow prints from the animals that passed during the night, leaving only faint impressions. You crouch beside a deep patch of softened soil. The half-melted shape of a boar's footprint lingers there, water pooling in its center. You reach out and touch the edges. Soft, crumbling, fading with every drop. You rise and walk farther into the forest, following a gentle slope that curves upward. You pause at the base of a large tree whose roots twist through the ground like thick ropes. You place your hand along the bark, feeling its texture. Water flows down the trunk in narrow streams, tracing the grooves. You shift your body slightly, leaning your back against the tree for support. The bark is rough and cold at first, but then it becomes strangely comforting. Your shoulders relax. You adjust your posture without thinking, aligning yourself so the tree's trunk absorbs some of the cold air. You find a position that eases the tension in your lower back. Your weight settles more comfortably. This small adjustment reminds you of another perspective from studies of prehistoric sleep habits. Some researchers suggest that early humans rested not only on soft bedding but also in semi-upright postures using trees, large stones, or sloping ground to relieve pressure from joints and avoid the dampest areas of the soil. These positions allowed the body to stay warm and supported, especially during long storms when lying flat became too cold. You find yourself testing this idea now. The support of the tree makes your body feel lighter somehow, as if you are borrowing its strength. You remain in that posture for a few breaths, letting your bones rest. Then you begin walking again, exploring how your feet respond to the saturated ground. You lift your heels slightly each time you step, avoiding deep sinking. You keep your steps short. You rotate your hips more than usual to keep balance. You notice how your ankles adjust to tiny shifts in the uneven forest floor. A rarely mentioned idea from biomechanical research flickers through your thoughts. Some scholars believe that constant exposure to wet, unstable ground may have influenced the way early humans learned to distribute weight while resting or sleeping. Bodies may have adapted to maintain warmth, even when lying on sloped or damp terrain. Those who traveled through soggy environments likely developed sleeping postures that reduced heat loss through the soil. You consider how your own posture changed last night. You curled tightly, but you also shifted your hips so your upper body rested on a slightly raised patch of bedding. That instinct was not random. You walk deeper until the forest becomes denser. Branches sag heavy with rain, brushing your shoulders as you pass. The air feels close, thick, almost warm compared to the clearing. Here, beneath the dense canopy, the rain falls in thin threads instead of steady sheets. You pause and realize how differently your body feels in this environment. Your back straightens slightly. Your shoulders release a bit more tension. Even your breathing slows. You sit on a fallen log and test how it supports your weight. The wood is slick but firm. You shift your hips and tuck your legs beneath you. The posture surprises you. It feels instinctively right, balanced, supported. Your spine aligns comfortably. Your knees draw upward just enough to keep warmth centered in your core. You close your eyes and let the rain whisper against the canopy above you. Your mind drifts again to old discussions among field researchers. Some propose that early humans may have experimented with various resting postures to adapt to cold or wet environments. Not out of conscious planning, but through necessity. Gradually, bodies would learn which angles preserved warmth, which positions allowed deeper breathing, which shapes helped avoid cramps during long nights. Watching yourself now, you feel that subtle learning inside your muscles. When you rise from the log, your legs feel steadier. You return toward the clearing, listening to how your footsteps change once you step back into open space. Rain falls more heavily here. The air grows sharper. You adjust your shoulders instinctively to brace against the cold. Your body responds in small, unconscious ways, positioning itself for warmth and balance. The shelter glows warmly ahead of you. Several group members sit by the fire warming their hands. A few talk about aches from sleeping curled so tightly. You join them, offering observations from your walk. One elder nods thoughtfully and begins demonstrating a posture she remembers from stories. She tucks her legs tightly, crosses her arms, and leans forward slightly to protect her belly from cold air. Others mimic the shape, adjusting slightly to fit their own comfort. A child copies the posture but flops sideways, laughing. The laughter warms the shelter more than the fire. Slowly, the group experiments with new ways to rest. Some lie with knees bent upward. Others lean their backs against stones or rolled hides. The shelter becomes a quiet place of movement, as everyone tests what their bodies need to find comfort in the endless rain. You settle onto the bedding again, curling your legs and shifting your hips so the driest part of the leaf layer supports you. You fold your arms close, relax your shoulders, and feel warmth gather slowly around your chest. Rain continues above you, soft, steady, patient. Your eyes close. Your body learns the storm all over again. You wake to a deep, rolling vibration that travels through the ground before it reaches your ears. For a moment you lie still, unsure whether you imagined it. Then the sky flashes a faint white, and several heartbeats later a low rumble answers from far away. Thunder. Not close, but close enough to shape the tension in the air. The shelter feels heavier, as if the very leaves sense what approaches. You sit up slowly. The fire has burned down to a cluster of reddish coals. A few people are already awake, rubbing their arms or adjusting their bedding. You can see worry on a few faces, though no one speaks yet. Thunder carries a different energy than rain. Rain soothes. Thunder warns. You crawl outside and let the air wash over your skin. It is colder than before, sharp and metallic, tasting faintly of charged sky. The forest stands in hushed stillness. Even the rain seems lighter for a brief moment, as though preparing itself. You tilt your head, listening. The rumble returns, deeper this time. You breathe slowly, feeling your heartbeat fall into its natural rhythm. Fear stirs lightly in your chest, but not sharply. You have spent many nights in the storm already. Tonight, you simply need patience. A well-accepted perspective from ancient weather pattern studies comes to mind as you scan the dark sky. Communities living in open landscapes often learn to read thunder not just as danger, but as timing. Distant rumbling could signal the beginning of a long storm cycle, while closer thunder might warn of flash floods. Early humans likely adjusted their movements and sleep depending on how the thunder rolled. You listen carefully now, hoping to understand which path the sky intends to take. Another flash lights the clouds, this time illuminating the forest canopy in a pale dome of silver. The trees appear almost carved from light for a split second, then darkness folds over them again. A deeper rumble follows, still distant, but perhaps less distant than before. Behind you, a few group members gather quietly outside the shelter. One asks whether the storm is turning dangerous. You hesitate before answering. You cannot predict thunder, but you can read the forest's response. You point to the treetops. Leaves sway lightly, not in panic. The animals that wandered near in previous nights remain hidden, not fleeing. The wind is cool but steady, not wild. These small signs suggest the thunder may circle around you rather than pass directly overhead. Your companion nods, reassured for the moment. You step farther from the shelter to observe the sky. Rain begins to fall more heavily again, turning into thick sheets that shimmer when lightning flares behind the clouds. You count the seconds between flash and rumble. 1, 2, 3, 4. The thunder follows with a long growl. Far enough. You breathe out slowly. As you walk along the edge of the clearing, a lesser-known interpretation from ancient ritual studies floats into your thoughts. Some anthropologists believe early humans developed calming techniques during storms that involved simple, repetitive actions, tapping stones together, humming low tones, or drawing patterns in wet soil. These movements helped settle fear, especially in long nights filled with thunder. You kneel now and trail your fingertips through the mud, making spirals. The simple motion centers your breath. The rain intensifies. Droplets strike leaves with loud slaps, and water cascades down the bark in thick streams. You press your palms together and close your eyes, letting the storm's rhythm wash through you. The next flash is brighter. You open your eyes as the clearing glows white for a heartbeat. Thunder answers more quickly this time, though still far from dangerous. The sound rolls through the valley and echoes against the distant cliffs, traveling like a long sigh across the forest. You return to the shelter, wiping rain from your face. Several group members have gathered around the fire, feeding it small sticks to keep the flame alive. A child curls close to her mother, clutching a piece of hide with white knuckles. Her eyes widen each time the sky brightens, but her mother whispers gentle words into her ear. You kneel beside them and adjust the hide roof, reinforcing it where droplets have begun to sneak through. The clay ceiling holds strong, refusing to let water pass. You feel grateful for yesterday's work. Another rumble shakes the air, then another. The pattern becomes steady. The storm announces itself again and again, like a distant drum asking for attention. You feel your heart sinking with its rhythm. A long-discussed but unresolved question in paleoclimate research enters your mind. Some specialists argue that repeated thunderous storms might have shaped early humans' emotional responses over generations, fostering patience and calm rather than fear. Constant exposure trained people to observe storms without panicking. Others argue the opposite, suggesting storms increased anxiety and encouraged more watchfulness at night. You feel both possibilities alive in the shelter now. Some relax. Some stay tense. All listen. You sit cross-legged near the fire, allowing its warmth to anchor you. Heat spreads slowly across your forearms. The light dances against the shelter's clay-coated walls. The crackling mingles with the distant thunder, creating a layered sound that feels ancient and grounding. You watch your companions shift into more restful positions. One leans back against a large stone. Another curls tightly with knees drawn in. Someone hums a low, steady note, possibly without realizing it. The sound blends with the rain until it becomes part of the storm. Outside, lightning flashes again. Thunder follows quickly, louder this time. A few people flinch. You lean forward, whispering softly that storms often thunder more loudly as they pass across ridges before moving on. The explanation soothes some of them. The child presses close to her mother but no longer trembles. You rise and walk to the entrance once more, needing to read the sky again. The rain strikes your face with sharp taps. You inhale deeply. The air smells charged, faintly metallic, but not dangerous. Lightning appears again, but to the side instead of directly ahead. The thunder that follows rolls across the forest at an angle. The storm is shifting, not toward you, past you. You close your eyes with relief. Returning inside, you find a place beside the fire and let your weight sink into the bedding. People settle around you, forming a warm cluster of shared breath and soft murmurs. Thunder continues, but each rumble drifts farther than the one before it. Gradually, the group relaxes, shoulders loosen, eyes soften. Even the child releases her tight grip and curls comfortably against her mother's chest. You stretch your legs toward the fire, letting warmth fight the chill that rain left on your skin. Thunder becomes a background presence. Rain becomes a steady lullaby once more. You breathe deeply and allow yourself to trust that the storm is moving on. You close your eyes. Patience carries you into another gentle rest. You wake slowly, eased into consciousness by the softened glow of early daylight filtering through the leafy seams of the shelter. The storm has not ended, but the rain feels lighter now, drifting down in thin threads that tap gently across the roof. The air inside the shelter feels warmer than usual, held close by the clay-lined walls and the heat left over from last night's fire. You roll onto your side and linger there for a moment, feeling the comfort of the leaf bedding beneath your ribs. Someone nearby murmurs in their sleep. Another shifts and pulls a hide across their shoulders. You sit up, stretching your arms toward the low ceiling. Your joints crack softly, and the warmth in your muscles tells you you've slept more deeply than expected. Outside, the forest breathes in the muted glow of dawn. You crawl toward the entrance and step out, letting cool droplets settle onto your skin. The world feels washed clean. You inhale deeply, savoring the scent of rain mixed with crushed greenery. You stand still, listening. The sounds have changed again. The storm is still present, but its voice is calmer. The gentle patter of dripping leaves blends with the slow sigh of water running down the cliff behind the clearing. You tilt your head slightly, sensing something familiar in this softened rhythm. A well-respected ecological interpretation drifts into your thoughts. Many researchers believe that early humans relied on inherited knowledge passed through countless generations to choose the best resting spots during long rainfall cycles. Families remembered specific ridges, caves, or tree clusters that stayed dry, even when storms lasted weeks. You feel that inherited sense stirring in you now, as if the land itself is calling you toward a known truth. You walk toward the base of the cliff, where yesterday's dripping stone had filled the air with delicate chimes. The sound is gentler this morning, like a distant lullaby. You place your hand against the cold rock. Water traces thin lines across your fingertips. The scent of wet stone carries memories you cannot name, as though the earth itself whispers fragments of ancient journeys. Behind you, others begin to emerge from the shelter. They stretch, yawn, and gather around the fire pit. Someone begins coaxing the embers back to life with thin sticks. Smoke rises in a slow spiral, drifting into the mist. The group murmurs softly, their voices blending with the rain in a natural harmony you have come to appreciate. You turn from the cliff and notice a trail leading deeper into the forest, a path shaped by time. Curiosity stirs in your chest. You signal to a companion, and together you begin walking slowly along the faint route. Mud squishes beneath your feet, soft and warm. Mist curls around your ankles like drifting silk. The forest feels older here, taller trees, thicker roots. The air carries a deeper scent, the smell of damp bark and hidden earth. The canopy filters the rainfall into soft, irregular taps. You walk side by side in silence, breathing in the crisp freshness. After a short time, you reach a wide oak, its trunk massive and gnarled with age. A shallow hollow exists at its base, filled with dry leaves despite the constant rain. You crouch and run your hand across the pile, softer than the leaves near your shelter, warmer too. A rarely discussed detail from ethnobotanical research enters your mind. Some ancient communities recognized that certain tree roots created natural drainage, keeping soil unusually dry even during heavy rain. People often slept near or against such roots when traveling, using their raised shape to avoid ground moisture. You smile faintly at the memory of this knowledge, marveling at how the land still offers clues if you know how to look. Your companion crouches beside you. Together you imagine how a small group could have rested in this hollow, protected by the oak's vast canopy. You picture early ancestors using trees in ways both practical and symbolic, sheltering under branches that had stood for generations. You sit for a moment beneath the oak, letting the sound of rain above you fall into its natural rhythm. Drip, pause, drip, drip, slow stream. The pattern is soothing. You close your eyes and lean your back against the trunk. A deep calm settles through your ribs. Your companion speaks quietly, wondering aloud if earlier storms were read differently than now. You consider the question. Discussions among scholars still explore whether early humans viewed rain cycles as signals tied to migration, spiritual meaning, or seasonal preparation. Some propose that rainfall patterns acted like messages inherited from ancestors. Others argue it was simply practical knowledge accumulated through constant observation. You can feel both truths at once while sitting beneath the oak. You rise again and continue walking deeper into the forest. The trail curves upward, and soon you reach a small ridge overlooking a long stretch of trees. Rain falls in diagonal sheets, illuminated by faint daylight. The view feels ancient, untouched. You watch how the mist sweeps between branches like wandering spirits. Water sparkles in thin lines where it leaks off broad leaves. A strange quietness settles around you, the kind that makes every breath feel meaningful. The storm has softened to the point where you can hear your own heartbeat. You step closer to the ridge edge and feel the wind brush against your cheeks. Its cool touch carries hints of moss and distant earth. Your companion nudges you and points toward the valley. Through the drifting mist, you spot an old path formed long before your group arrived. Narrow, curved, shaped by footsteps over countless years. It winds along the valley floor like a memory etched into the land itself. A small, curious hypothesis from migration studies comes to mind. Some specialists believe that paths like this may not have been formed by one group alone, but by repeated use across generations. People return to the same safe areas, the same sleeping spots, the same high ground when storms overtook the land. Knowledge passed quietly, not through language alone but through movement. Bodies remembered what maps had never recorded. You breathe deeply, letting that understanding settle into your chest. This path below may have been walked by ancestors you'll never know, and now you stand above it, sensing the faint echo of their decisions. You begin the slow walk back to the shelter. As you descend, the forest brightens slightly. Rain continues, but the mist thins, revealing clumps of ferns and clusters of mushrooms along the ground. The air feels cleaner now, lighter, despite the weight of continuous rain. When you return to the clearing, the fire burns brighter. Warm light spills through the entrance. People are quietly preparing the morning's food. Roots sliced thin, herbs crushed, berries rinsed in rainwater. A few children sit near the fire, drawing shapes into damp soil with sticks. You join the group and share what you saw. Faces brighten with interest. Some nod knowingly, as though the land's hidden places are familiar even if they have never visited them. As the rain continues, you settle onto the leaf bedding. Your body relaxes, your breath slows. Your mind feels anchored by ancestral memory. A sense that others have endured storms like this and left faint trails of wisdom behind. You close your eyes and let the sound of the rain fold gently around you. Tonight, you rest with the comfort that the land remembers what you need to know. You wake again to the softened glow of the firelight and the scent of crushed leaves warming near the embers. The storm has not stopped. It seems determined to shape every hour of your days and nights. But this morning the rain falls with a steadier rhythm. Not harsh, not gentle, simply persistent, as if reminding you that it has not finished its work. You sit up slowly, stretching your back, and listen to the droplets tapping the leafy roof in patient patterns. When you crawl outside, cool air greets you, carrying the scent of wet bark mixed with a faint sweetness drifting from the deeper forest. You inhale deeply, letting the crispness settle into your chest. The clearing glows faintly under a pale sky, and water glimmers across surfaces like scattered beads of glass. Your group begins to stir behind you. Quiet voices rise, soft with sleep. As you stand in the clearing, you notice fresh footprints along the muddy edge, not from your group. They are shallow impressions with distinct edges, suggesting another band of people passed by during the night or early dawn. You crouch beside them and touch the nearest print. Cool, fresh. Water has collected within the impression, but the edges remain intact. Whoever made them was not far ahead. A well-supported idea in anthropological research enters your thoughts. Many early human groups moved in loose territories that overlapped with others. They did not build fixed borders but followed seasonal patterns, water sources, and foraging routes. Encounters between groups were common, sometimes friendly, sometimes tense. Rainstorms often encouraged people to move in search of better shelter or food, increasing these contacts. You feel the weight of this knowledge now, as you study the footprints. You straighten and follow the trail a short distance. The prints lead toward a patch of tall ferns at the forest's edge. When you push the fronds aside, you find a few broken stems and a smoothed patch of soil where someone knelt or rested briefly. A faint smell lingers in the air. Smoke, not from your fire. Another group must have traveled nearby, their scent carried through the rain. Your pulse quickens with curiosity. You glance back at your shelter, then continue deeper, following the faint signs. You move slowly, listening for voices or movement. The rain muffles most sounds, turning the world into a soft blur of hissing water and distant dripping. After a short walk, you find traces of earlier activity beneath a wide cedar tree. The ground here is dry enough for footprints to remain more clearly. You see several adult prints, smaller ones from children, and the faint scuff marks of something dragged across the forest floor, perhaps a bundle of hides or a bag of foraged roots. The direction of the tracks tells you they were moving northward. A seldom mentioned interpretation from studies of early social networks drifts into your thoughts. Some groups, even when unrelated, may have shared knowledge informally during encounters, where edible plants grew after storms, which rivers were rising, which predators had moved recently. These exchanges could be brief and subtle, but essential for survival. You imagine meeting another community beneath this cedar, sharing observations of the storm, perhaps trading dried food or warning each other of swollen rivers. You touch the bark of the cedar trunk. It is rough and thick, its scent rich and grounding. The branches above provide a surprising shelter from the rain. You close your eyes and imagine the other group resting here, perhaps building a small fire to warm children before continuing their journey. As you walk back toward the clearing, your mind lingers on the possibility of meeting others soon. Not all meetings are peaceful, but storms often encourage cooperation. Shared struggle can soften suspicion. When you return to the shelter, the group has fully awakened. People sit near the fire, eating a simple morning meal of warmed roots and berries. You share what you found: the footprints, the resting place, the possibility of nearby travelers. Some faces brighten with interest. Others look cautious. One elder nods thoughtfully and remarks that during long rains, groups often follow similar paths in search of dry ground. Together you discuss the possibility of encountering these neighbors. You decide to remain observant, but not fearful. The storm pushes all families into movements they did not plan. Understanding this eases tension. After eating, a few group members help reinforce the shelter again. Rain has loosened some of the clay patches, and you reapply mud mixed with bark fibers to seal the outer seams. Water slides smoothly down the shelter walls, and the structure feels even sturdier than the day before. You stand back to admire the improvements when a faint sound carries through the trees. Muffled footsteps, several of them, steady and cautious. You signal the group to keep calm. Everyone moves quietly but without alarm, gathering near the fire in relaxed positions that communicate neither fear nor aggression. Moments later, figures appear through the mist. 3 adults and 1 child, all soaked from the rain, carrying small bundles over their shoulders. They pause just inside the clearing, observing your shelter and the group gathered around the fire. Their expressions are watchful but weary. You step forward slowly, palms open and visible. You greet them with calm gestures shaped by instinct more than by words. They exchange glances, then mirror your movement, lowering their shoulders slightly in acknowledgement. This moment reminds you of an ongoing discussion among archaeologists. While material evidence of early intergroup communication is scarce, many believe that small gestures, shared postures, and relaxed stances may have played a crucial role in peaceful encounters. These subtle cues could communicate intentions and reduce conflict long before language became elaborate. You invite the travelers closer by stepping aside from the fire. The child among them shivers visibly from the cold. One of your companions offers a warmed hide. Another places a handful of cooked roots near the fire's edge for them to take if they wish. Gradually, the travelers relax. They step closer, allowing the fire's warmth to wash over them. You notice signs of exhaustion in their faces, dark circles beneath their eyes, tension in their shoulders, and the slow, worn movements of people who have slept in unsafe places for several nights. You listen as they speak in soft, simple tones. Their dialect feels familiar but shaped by different patterns. You understand enough to learn that their shelter collapsed during one of the heavier storms. They have been moving through the forest since yesterday, searching for a place to rest that was not flooded. Your group responds with equal simplicity. You explain that your shelter stands strong for now and that they are welcome to share warmth until the next break in the rain. They nod gratefully and settle onto nearby stones. The clearing fills with new energy, warm but cautious. The two groups observe one another carefully. Faces soften, shoulders drop. The child who arrived with the travelers sits near a pair of your own children, quietly watching the steam rise from their hands as they dry them near the fire. You notice a curious calm settling over both communities. Perhaps it is the presence of others who understand the strain of the storm. Perhaps it is the simple relief of being able to rest without fear of water rising beneath their feet. You sit near the fire and feel warmth spread through your fingers. Rain continues its quiet descent, creating ripples in puddles. Clay along the shelter walls glistens softly. The sky above remains pale and misty. You feel grateful for the encounter, not because it promises anything, but because it reminds you of the invisible threads connecting groups who travel through the same wild world. Each choice, each shelter, each fire is part of a larger story you share without ever planning it. As the travelers rest, you lie back on the leaf bedding and let your eyes close. The fire crackles softly, rain hums overhead. Nearby strangers breathe the same damp air, warmed by the same flame. You drift gently towards sleep, sensing the quiet harmony of two groups finding brief refuge together beneath the endless rain. You wake to the sound of low voices blending softly with the rain. For a moment, you are not sure whether you are hearing dreams or reality, but when you blink and sit upright, you see both groups gathered near the fire. The travelers who arrived yesterday sit close to the warmth, their shoulders eased, their faces less drawn from exhaustion. Your own companions sit beside them, eating small pieces of softened root and sharing quiet words. A calmness hangs over the clearing like a fragile blanket. You stretch your legs and step outside the shelter. Overnight, the rain seems to have changed its mood again. It falls in slow, steady sheets, not forceful but constant, as if determined to continue for days more. The air tastes clean yet heavy with moisture, and the ground feels almost spongy beneath your feet. You kneel and press your palms to the earth. Water seeps up between your fingers. Even the higher ground you chose days ago is beginning to feel saturated. You take a long breath and glance toward the river path you walked earlier in the storm. You cannot see the water from here, but you feel its presence in the air like a pulse. If the rain continues, the river will swell again, perhaps more than before. Movement and shelter will depend on these cycles. A commonly accepted perspective from environmental archaeology passes through your mind. Many ancient communities shaped their routines around seasonal cycles of storms, using each long rainfall to adjust their migration paths. These storm periods were not random interruptions but signals that guided when groups should relocate, gather resources, or conserve energy. You sense that the current storm is doing exactly that, shaping your days and nights without pause. As you approach the fire, the travelers greet you with nods and warm eyes. The child you first saw shivering now sits wrapped in a hide, more alert, eating a berry offered by one of your companions. You kneel beside the fire and warm your hands, letting the heat settle deeply into your bones. The leader of the visiting group sits across from you. Her face is strong, lined with long experience, and her voice is low as she explains the path her group followed. They came from the north, where the storm had struck harder. Their shelters collapsed under heavy water, and the ground grew so unstable that they had no choice but to move. They mention hearing distant cracks in the night, perhaps falling trees or landslides, though they never saw the source. Your group listens carefully. You exchange insights about the terrain, the river, the cliffs. You mention the hours you spent reading the rhythm of rain and observing where water pools. You explain how you sealed the shelter with clay and bark. The other group's leader nods and studies the walls with interest. A small but fascinating detail from studies of ancient cultural exchange rises in your memory. When separate groups encountered one another during challenging weather, they often shared techniques related to shelter building or fire tending. These exchanges could spread ideas across large distances without the need for long-term contact. Watching the travelers inspect your clay reinforcements, you feel that same quiet transfer happening now. One of your companions hands the visitors a small piece of resin you used earlier for waterproofing. The travelers examine it with appreciation, rubbing it between their fingers to test its strength. In return, they show you dried strips of fruit wrapped in woven plant fiber, preserved from days before the storm intensified. You have never seen food prepared that way, and curiosity stirs in your chest. This simple exchange softens the air between the groups even more. Eventually the conversation quiets, and the travelers rest again. Their bodies sag with relief as they settle near the fire. Some of your own group members begin to prepare midday food. Steam rises gently from the cooking leaves, blending with the thin smoke drifting upward from the fire pit. You step outside the shelter again. The rain continues to fall at a patient pace, neither weakening nor strengthening. The sky is pale and without shape, like a giant dome of cloud pressing gently down on the forest. Water trickles from the branches overhead and forms thin lines on your arms. You walk a little farther into the trees. The forest floor is covered in puddles and streams now, shifting patterns that reflect soft grey light. You crouch near a shallow pool and watch how raindrops strike the surface, creating tiny explosions of ripples that merge and swirl. While watching the water, you remember an ongoing debate among paleo-environmental researchers. Some believe that in prehistoric communities, the cycles of long storms influence their sense of time more strongly than the passage of days or nights. The repetition of rain, the changes in intensity, the rhythm of thunder or wind may have shaped how people understood the world's flow. You stare at the rippling surface and wonder whether you are feeling that ancient sense now. Storms dictate everything: sleep patterns, food gathering, movement, conversation, even dreams. A sudden shift in the wind makes the trees sway gently. Mist gathers in thicker waves, drifting across the clearing like low clouds. You glance back and see the silhouette of your shelter glowing faintly from the fire within. The travelers' forms move softly behind the wall of leaves, shaping shadows that dance across the ground. You approach the shelter again, and as you do, the travelers stand and gather their belongings. Their leader steps forward and explains in simple gestures that they must continue northward before the next rise of the river. They thank your group with quiet sincerity. One traveler places a carved bone charm into your hand, a sign of goodwill shaped by careful fingers. You feel warmth spread through your chest at the gesture. Your group responds with gifts of their own: a small bundle of dried herbs, a handful of seeds ready for roasting, and 2 leaf wrappings filled with warm root mash. The travelers bow their heads gratefully. Even in the storm, the exchange feels gentle and grounding. Before leaving, the travelers share one last piece of information. They gesture toward the western ridge, describing a sheltered grove beneath a cluster of tall pines. According to them, the grove stays dry longer during heavy rainfall. The ground slopes well, and the canopy shields against the heaviest drops. They used it for one night before moving on. Their leader taps the earth gently to emphasize safety. Your group listens attentively. New knowledge is always welcome. The travelers depart quietly. Their figures fade into the mist as they follow the path northward. You stand watching them until only the sound of rain remains. Back inside the shelter, the atmosphere feels calmer. People talk softly about the grove. Some want to explore it. Others prefer to stay here until the rain shifts again. You decide to wait for a break later in the day to scout it out yourself. For now, you sit near the fire and let the warmth settle into your shoulders. You think about the meeting, the knowledge exchanged, and the shared moment of rest. This kind of quiet cooperation may have shaped countless generations of people living under storms just like this. Rain hums above your head. The shelter feels steady. The fire glows gently. You stretch your legs across the leaf bedding and close your eyes. The storm cycles around you, but inside, you feel connected to every path and every group that has walked these forests before. You remain seated near the fire long after the travelers have vanished into the mist. Their departure leaves behind a strange quiet, not empty but reflective, like the echo of a distant drum fading slowly through the rain. You stretch your fingers toward the warmth of the flames and watch the smoke rise through the vent in the leafy roof. The fire crackles softly, collapsing into glowing embers that pulse in steady orange light. Outside, rain continues with its patient whisper, neither growing stronger nor weakening. It feels almost deliberate, as if the sky wishes to shape one more lesson from water before releasing its hold. You decide it is time to investigate the grove the travelers mentioned. If the storm intensifies again, knowing where another dry place lies could shape the next days of your journey. You gather a few sturdy branches, tighten the hide around your shoulders, and signal to two companions. They rise from the bedding with quiet determination. The group relies on these small scouting missions, especially when the storm pulls the world into constant change. The three of you step into the forest. Mud presses against your ankles. Leaves shimmer beneath the rainfall. Mist shifts and swirls like living breath. Each step demands balance. You distribute your weight carefully, remembering how the slippery ground can shift without warning. The air tastes damp and cool against your tongue. You breathe deeply, grounding yourself. You follow the footprints left by the travelers' shallow impressions now softened by new rain. They guide you along a faint trail marked by broken ferns and bent grasses. The slope rises gradually toward the western ridge. Trees grow taller here, their roots twisting across the ground like thick veins. The canopy knits itself tightly overhead, catching much of the rainfall before it reaches you. Droplets fall in slow streams instead of sudden bursts. A well-regarded interpretation in landscape archaeology slips into your thoughts as you walk. Many ancient groups learned to use ridges as natural markers of safety, knowing that elevated ground absorbed less water and offered clearer visibility. These rises served as both lookout points and memory anchors in the vastness of the forest. You feel the ridge calling to you now, a familiar shape even though you have never walked it before. As you climb higher, the rainfall softens further. Your steps become easier. The trees part slightly, revealing tall pines whose branches form an overlapping canopy so dense that only thin ribbons of water slip through. You step beneath them and instantly feel a shift. The sound of rain becomes muffled. The ground feels firmer. The air carries the sharp, clean scent of pine resin. Your companions look around with wide eyes. This grove feels different, older, quieter, almost sacred in its stillness. You walk deeper into the pine cluster. The earth rises in gentle mounds, covered with dry brown needles. Rainwater runs off in narrow channels, leaving patches of ground untouched by moisture. When you kneel and press your palm into the soil, it feels cool but not saturated. Even after days of relentless rain, the grove remains resistant to flooding. A lesser-known theory from forest ecology surfaces in your mind. Some researchers propose that certain tree communities create microenvironments that protect ground layers from excessive saturation. Their root systems direct water away, and their overlapping branches break rainfall into soft mist before it reaches the soil. Ancient humans likely recognized these special areas and used them as temporary camps during long storms. You feel that understanding resonate through your body as you stand beneath the pines. Your companions kneel beside you and test the earth. One of them smiles softly and says the ground feels almost like dry leaf bedding. The other runs her fingers through the pine needles and marvels at how warm they are compared to the soaked soil of the clearing. You walk a little farther and discover a natural hollow between two large roots. It forms a shallow basin sheltered from the wind. You sit inside it and the shape seems to cradle your body with surprising comfort. Rain falls faintly above, but only a few droplets reach you. You close your eyes and let the stillness wash over you. In that moment, another ongoing discussion among prehistoric researchers floats into your thoughts. Some suggest early humans used environments like this not only for sleep, but also as places of mental restoration. Storms caused fatigue and emotional strain, and certain groves offered psychological relief as much as physical shelter. You feel that truth now. The pines create a space where your breath deepens and your shoulders loosen. You rise again and signal to your companions to explore the far edge. Together you map the grove's boundaries with your steps, noting where the ground begins to slope too sharply or where stone juts from the earth. You find a small patch where the pine canopy opens just enough for filtered light to fall through. Moss grows there, soft and thick, untouched by puddles. This grove is exactly as the travelers described, safe, dry, and shielded from the worst of the storm, a sanctuary carved by nature. You stay for a few more breaths, absorbing its stillness. Then you begin the slow walk back to your shelter. The forest feels louder now that you have left the quiet grove. Rain strikes more heavily against leaves. Wind stirs branches with soft groans. Mud grabs at your ankles as the slope descends. You move carefully, supporting one another when the ground becomes slippery. As you near the clearing, the sound of the fire reaches your ears. The warm glow spills from the shelter's entrance. When your companions see you return, relief softens their eyes. You share your findings, describing the dry soil, the protective canopy, the sturdy roots shaped like natural cradles. The group listens with quiet excitement. Knowing such a refuge exists brings comfort, even if you stay here for now. Several members gather near you, asking whether you felt anything unusual in the grove. You tell them the truth. It felt peaceful, steady, almost comforting in its silence. They nod, understanding the value of a place that settles both mind and body. Food is prepared and shared. The shelter warms. The fire crackles. Rain continues its steady hum above your head. Later, as you lie on the leaf bedding, your thoughts drift to the cycles of storms that shape the land. How each shift in rainfall brings new challenges and new knowledge. How people before you have walked through forests under endless rain, learning where to stand, where to sleep, where to listen. Your eyes close slowly. The sound of rain fades into a soft blur. Tomorrow, you may visit the grove again, or you may remain here. But for tonight, you rest with the certainty that the forest holds more shelter than you once imagined, and that the storm, for all its persistence, cannot take away the quiet places nature hides. You wake to a deep stillness that feels unfamiliar after so many days of constant rain. At first you think the storm has finally ended, but as you lift your head, you hear the faint patter of droplets still falling through the canopy. Only now the sound is softer, spread thin across the leaves, like the final strokes of a brush fading across a wet canvas. The rain has not stopped. It has simply grown tired. You sit up slowly, brushing crushed leaves from your shoulders. Warmth from the fire lingers in the clay-walled shelter, and the bedding beneath you feels drier than usual. Your companions stir around you, stretching, rubbing their eyes, murmuring quiet words to one another. The storm has softened just enough to let everyone sleep a little more deeply. You crawl outside and stand in the clearing. Mist hangs low across the ground. Steam rises from damp earth as the first thin strands of daylight slip through the trees. The air tastes fresh, clean, almost sweet. For the first time in many days, you see hints of color returning to the world, the faint green glow of moss, the warm brown of pine bark, the gentle amber hue of forest soil beneath the mist. You breathe in deeply, filling your lungs with the cool morning air. Your skin tingles. Something feels different, not in the storm, but inside you. A calmness settles over your shoulders, quieter than the rain and steadier than firelight. Perhaps it is the knowledge that this long cycle of rain may soon loosen its grip. Or perhaps it is the sense that your group has grown stronger, shaped by every night spent under dripping leaves and every day spent gathering roots beneath dark clouds. You walk toward the edge of the clearing and listen carefully. The forest carries a new sound this morning, the slow dripping of water falling from soaked branches, collecting in shallow pools that no longer grow deeper. Even the wind seems to move differently, brushing lightly through the trees instead of pushing against them. A familiar insight from ancient environmental studies drifts into your thoughts. Many early communities learned to read the subtle cues of a storm's ending long before the sky cleared fully. They noticed how the sound of rainfall changed, how the scent of the air shifted, how animals moved with cautious optimism. These signs shaped when they chose to return to open spaces, when they traveled, and when they allowed their bodies to rest more deeply. You close your eyes and sense those cues now. Behind you, others emerge from the shelter. Some stand beneath the thinning rain with their faces turned upward. Others examine the clay walls you built days ago, running their hands along the dry spots that resisted the storm. A few children kick lightly at the softened earth, watching droplets rise like sparks. You gather the group and share what you sense. The storm is weakening, not ending entirely, but moving toward a new phase. The group listens, eyes brightening with hope. Some speak of traveling soon, of checking the swollen river, of seeing whether the grove beneath the pines remains dry enough to guide tomorrow's paths. Before moving anywhere, you help reinforce the fire. Thin sticks catch the embers quickly, and bright flames rise in slow, curling gestures. Their warm light glows through the shelter entrance and reflects across damp leaves. You sit beside the fire for a while, letting your breath fall into a steady rhythm. Rain whispers above your head, but the sound no longer carries the heavy weight of earlier nights. Instead, it feels like the quiet at the end of a long story, a soft, lingering footnote written across the canopy. As you eat the morning meal of roots and softened berries, someone asks whether you dreamed during the night. You take a moment to remember. Your dreams were gentle, filled with images of pine needles falling slowly around you, of water becoming thin threads of silver, of distant voices speaking softly across the valley. A thoughtful interpretation from some researchers returns to you. They propose that ancient people often dreamed most vividly at the tail end of storms, when exhaustion eased and anxiety lessened. These dreams could shape thoughts about the future, influencing where groups traveled next. You wonder whether your own dreams are nudging you towards something new. After the meal, you decide to walk to the ridge once more. A few companions join you. The mud feels firmer today, no longer clinging heavily to your ankles. The forest floor holds your weight with more confidence, as if welcoming your steps again. As you climb the ridge, mist swirls around your feet, lifting lightly with each breath of wind. When you reach the top, the view stretches farther than it has in days. The valley below glows faintly under the soft morning light. Rain still falls in thin curtains, but you can see breaks in the grey sky beyond the distant trees. The storm's heart has moved on. Your companions marvel quietly at the view. For a moment all of you stand still, letting the cool air rest in your lungs. You feel the world growing wider again. Paths that were hidden beneath floods or curtains of rain now reveal themselves in faint lines and subtle curves. You step closer to the edge of the ridge and listen. Birdsong. Not loud, not many, but a few tentative notes drift from somewhere deep in the forest. The first natural voice you have heard in many days. A smile spreads across your face. The forest is waking. As you descend from the ridge, you feel the ground rise with each step, buoyant with new possibility. You walk back to the clearing with renewed energy. When you arrive, the group is already preparing for the day, bundling hides, sorting remaining food, and tending the fire. You sit near the shelter and run your fingers along the smooth clay. It is held strong. The leaves above still glisten with water, but the inside remains mostly dry. You think of everything the group endured. The first restless nights, the rising river, the animals passing through the trees, the clay you shaped with your hands, the shadows in the storm, the quiet visitors who shared warmth with you. Each moment is woven into this shelter like fibers in a basket. Rain continues, but now it falls lightly, like a promise that the end is near. You lie back on the bedding for a final moment of rest. Your eyes slip shut. The sound of the storm becomes a soft hum. Your breath slows. Your muscles soften. Your thoughts glide toward quiet. And slowly, gently, this long, wet chapter begins to close. Now that the storm has softened and your shelter rests warm beneath the thinning rain, let your breathing fall into a slower rhythm. Imagine yourself curled on soft leaves. The fire's glow fading gently across your skin. The forest has grown quieter. Even the rain feels lighter, drifting down in long, calm threads that soothe rather than stir. You feel your muscles begin to loosen. The world outside moves at a peaceful pace. Water slides from the canopy in slow, unhurried drops. The earth beneath you is warm, shaped by so many nights of shared breath and steady firelight. Each detail fades softly into the distance, leaving only comfort behind. Imagine the air cooling your face with every slow inhale. Picture the quiet glow of the last embers painting faint patterns on the shelter walls. The storm's long voice has become a whisper now, a gentle lullaby guiding your thoughts. No need to move, no need to plan. Just let the rhythm of rain drift around you like a soft blanket. Let your mind settle the way water settles in a calm pool after days of wind. Your breath grows deeper still. Your eyelids grow heavier. The forest holds you safely, wrapped in its timeless patience. Everything that mattered today can wait until morning. Tonight, there is only warmth, only stillness, only rest. Let the rain guide you into quiet dreams.